The phone buzzed against my thigh, a message from Ben. I almost ignored it, focused on folding Charlie's superhero shirts into neat squares, but something made me look. Maybe it was the late hour, or the fact that Ben was supposedly in a meeting. Can't wait to taste you again. Last night was incredible. Delete this. My hands went numb. The message blinked at me, cruel and clear on the screen. The contact name above it read, Laura M. Ben had sent it to me by mistake. Laura, our next-door neighbor, the woman who borrowed cups of sugar and watched Charlie when I had dental appointments. I sat down hard on Charlie's bed, his Batman comforter crinkling under my weight. The laundry basket toppled, spilling clean clothes across the floor. My mind raced through 1,000 tiny moments, the lingering conversations over the fence, the way they laughed too long at each other's jokes at neighborhood barbecues, the late meetings that had become more frequent. Mom? Charlie's voice came from the doorway. Are you okay? I looked up at my 10-year-old son, his face pinched with concern. He was so much like his father. Same dark eyes, same worried furrow between his brows. The similarity made my stomach turn. Just tired, honey. Why aren't you doing your homework? I finished. Dad's home early. He's in the kitchen. The phone felt like it was burning through my pocket. I stood up, smoothing my hands down my jeans. Go play your video game for a bit. I need to talk to Dad. Ben was at the counter, loosening his tie, scrolling through his phone with a slight frown. He looked up when I entered, flashing that smile that had made me fall in love with him 15 years ago. Hey, babe. Meeting ended early. I can see that. My voice came out steadier than I expected. Your phone working okay? Yeah. Why? I pulled out my phone and held it up, screen facing him. Because you sent this to the wrong person. The color drained from his face so quickly I thought he might faint. Then it rushed back in an angry flush. Maggie, I can explain. Can you? Can you explain why you're sleeping with our neighbor? Why you're betraying not just me, but Daniel too? Their kids play with Charlie, for God's sake. He stepped toward me, hands raised like he was approaching a wild animal. Lower your voice. Charlie will hear. That's what you're worried about? Charlie hearing? Not the fact that you've destroyed our family? Don't be dramatic. It's not. If you say it's not what I think, I swear to God, Ben. My fingers curled into fists. How long? He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I used to find endearing. A few months. It just happened. We never meant. A few months, I repeated. The words tasted like ash. Through the window, I could see Laura's house, her perfectly maintained garden, the swing set where our children played together. Get out! What? Get out of this house, now, before I do something we'll both regret. This is my house, too. You can't just watch me. I pulled out my phone again. Should I forward this message to Daniel? To the whole neighborhood? To your boss? His face hardened. You wouldn't dare. Try me. The Ben I thought I knew wouldn't dare sleep with our neighbor either. So clearly I don't know what either of us is capable of anymore. We stood there, the granite counter between us like a battle line. From upstairs came the muffled sounds of Charlie's video game, the cheerful music a jarring contrast to the moment. Finally, Ben grabbed his keys. We need to talk about this rationally. When you've calmed down, get out! He left, the door clicking shut behind him with surprising gentleness. I waited until I heard his car start before I let myself shake. Let the tears come. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Ben. Probably more excuses, more lies. I deleted it without reading it. Then I opened my contacts and scrolled to Emily's name. My finger hovered over the call button as I stared out the window at Laura's house, where a light had just come on upstairs. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Emily arrived with 2 bottles of wine and a fierce expression that said she was ready for war. We sat in my kitchen, the house eerily quiet without Charlie, who was at his first sleepover since everything happened. He's trying to get back in? Emily poured generously into both glasses. Every day, I took a long sip. He left another message this morning about working things out for Charlie's sake. As if destroying our family was somehow in Charlie's best interest. Classic manipulation! Emily's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then set it face down. How's Charlie handling it? He's quiet. Too quiet. Yesterday he asked if we could still go to the Mitchells' pool party next weekend. The wine turned bitter in my mouth. Can you imagine? Standing there watching Laura parade around in her designer swimsuit, pretending she hasn't been sleeping with my husband? Don't go. Send Charlie with me and Kevin. Before I could respond, movement caught my eye through the window. Daniel Mitchell was in his driveway, loading boxes into his car. Even from here, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the mechanical way he moved. He knows, I said suddenly. Daniel knows, or at least suspects. Emily followed my gaze. How can you tell? Because that's exactly how I looked 3 days ago before the text. Like I was sleepwalking through a nightmare I couldn't quite remember. A knock at the door made us both jump. Ben stood there, and my heart did that terrible lurch it always did now. Part love, part hatred, part crushing disappointment. I need to get some things, he said when I opened the door. Won't take long. Fine. I stepped aside, letting him pass. Emily's presence seemed to throw him off balance. He headed upstairs while Emily and I watched in silence. A few minutes later, he came down with a duffel bag. Where are you staying? I asked, hating that I cared enough to ask. The Marriott downtown. He hesitated. Charlie's at Tommy's? Yes. Good. That's good. He shifted the bag on his shoulder. Maggie, can we talk? Privately? Anything you need to say, you can say in front of Emily. His jaw tightened. This isn't helping anyone. We need to discuss this rationally, like adults. Think about Charlie. Don't! My voice cracked. Don't you dare use our son to justify what you did. I'm not justifying anything. But this Cold War isn't sustainable. Laura and I... Get out! Emily stood up, her voice low and dangerous. Now! He left, the door closing with that same infuriating gentleness. Through the window, I watched him walk to his car. As he pulled away, Daniel Mitchell appeared at the end of his driveway, staring after Ben's car with an expression I recognized all too well. I need to talk to him, I said. Daniel, are you sure that's wise? He deserves to know. And maybe... I trailed off, watching Daniel return to his boxes. Maybe we can help each other. Be careful, Emily warned. Revenge might feel good, but it can consume you. This isn't about revenge. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. It's about justice, about consequences. Later that night, after Emily left, I sat in Charlie's room, folding the last of his laundry. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I know about Ben and Laura. We should talk. Daniel. I stared at the message for a long time, thinking about consequences and justice and the thin line between the two. Through the window, I could see Laura's silhouette moving behind their bedroom curtains, probably getting ready for bed, probably thinking she was safe in her perfect little world. I typed back, tomorrow, coffee shop on Main, 10 a.m. The response came immediately. I'll be there. I put the phone down and picked up Charlie's favorite stuffed dinosaur, the one he'd had since he was 3. Everything I did now would affect him, would shape his understanding of love and trust and family. But so would letting Ben and Laura's betrayal go unpunished. The dinosaur stared back at me with its worn button eyes, offering no answers. But I already knew what I had to do. Daniel's laptop screen cast a blue glow across his face as he pulled up the bank statements. We sat in his home office, the house empty while Laura took their kids to soccer practice. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here we were, 2 betrayed spouses, hunched over financial records like detectives. There. He pointed to a series of transactions. Every month for the past 6 months, Laura's been transferring $5,000 to an account I've never seen before. My throat tightened. Ben's been doing the same from our joint account. I thought it was for Charlie's college fund. They're planning something. Daniel's voice was flat, controlled. These transfers started right around the time the affair began, I finished. The pieces were falling into place like a twisted puzzle. But why so much money? Before Daniel could answer, his phone buzzed. Laura's face flashed on the screen. He declined the call, his hand trembling slightly. She's been asking about the investment account, he said. Wanting to make another transfer. I've been stalling. I leaned closer to the screen, scanning the numbers. Wait, look at these dates. The transfers always happen right after Ben's business trips. Laura's spa weekends, too. Daniel pulled up another window, which apparently weren't at any spa I can find charges for. My stomach lurched. They were meeting up, using our money to fund their little getaways. A car door slammed outside. We both froze. Through the window, I saw Ben's Mercedes pulling into my driveway next door. He got out, carrying a gift bag with bright tissue paper sprouting from the top. Charlie's birthday present, I said bitterly. He thinks he can buy forgiveness with overpriced video games. Daniel was still staring at the screen. There's something else. An email chain I recovered from Laura's deleted folder. They've been looking at houses. Houses? In Colorado, where Ben's company is opening that new office. The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the edge of the desk, my knuckles white. They're planning to leave. Together. With our money. Daniel's voice cracked. And probably try for custody of the kids. A notification popped up on the laptop. An email from Laura to Ben sent an hour ago. Everything's set for next month. Dee doesn't suspect anything. Can't wait to start our new life. Love you. The casual cruelty of it, the complete disregard for the lives they were destroying, hit me like a physical blow. I stood up so quickly my chair toppled backward. I need Ben's laptop, I said. He always leaves it in his home office when he visits Charlie. Daniel looked up sharply. What are you thinking? That it's time to stop being victims. I moved toward the door. Cover for me if Laura comes back. I slipped out of Daniel's house and into mine through the back door. Sure enough, I could hear Ben and Charlie upstairs, probably setting up whatever new game he'd bought. The sound of their laughter felt like glass in my chest. Ben's laptop was exactly where I knew it would be, charging on his desk. I'd watched him type his password countless times over the years. Charlie's birthday, plus the year we met. Sentimental, for a man planning to abandon his family. The folder wasn't hard to find. Ben had always been overconfident, never believing anyone would dare to look. Photos, emails, bank statements, real estate listings, everything Daniel and I needed to prove the depth of their betrayal. I heard footsteps on the stairs and quickly sent everything to my email, then closed the laptop. When Ben appeared in the doorway, I was standing at the window, watching Laura's car pull into her driveway. What are you doing in here? He asked, suspicion creeping into his voice. I turned to face him, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. Just remembering who you used to be, the man I thought you were. His face softened, that manipulative, practiced softness I now saw through completely. Maggie, I know things are difficult right now, but Charlie loved his present, I cut him off. Thank you for that, at least. I walked past him, our shoulders barely brushing. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with the confirmation that all the files had been received. Game on. The evidence sat in my inbox like a loaded gun. Every time I opened my laptop, I felt its weight, its potential for destruction. But something held me back from pulling the trigger. Charlie's voice drifted up from the backyard where he was playing with Laura's kids. The sound stopped me cold. Their laughter, their innocent games, their world still whole and unshattered. My phone buzzed. Daniel. Laura's asking about the investment account again? Getting suspicious? We need to move soon. I watched through the window as Charlie showed Laura's youngest how to catch a baseball. The sight of them together made my chest ache. One revelation, and all of this would end, not just for Ben and Laura, but for their children too. The doorbell rang. Emily stood there with a determined look and a manila envelope. You need to see this, she said, pushing past me into the kitchen. Kevin handled Ben and Laura's mortgage refinance last month. He shouldn't show me client documents, but... She spread papers across the counter. Look at the beneficiary information. My hands trembled as I read. They've already bought the house in Colorado, in both their names. There's more. Emily pointed to a paragraph near the bottom. They used Charlie's college fund as part of the down payment. The room spun. I gripped the counter, my knuckles white. That money was for his future. Maggie! Emily's voice softened. You have enough to destroy them both. Why are you waiting? Before I could answer, Charlie burst through the back door, face flushed with excitement. Mom, can Jake and Sarah come over tomorrow? Their mom said it's okay if you say yes. I looked at my son, really looked at him. He was smiling, but there was something careful in his eyes, like he was watching for cracks in my expression. We'll see, honey. Why don't you go get cleaned up for dinner? After he left, Emily gathered the papers. You can't protect him forever. The truth will come out eventually. I know. I sank into a chair. But what if my revenge hurts him more than their betrayal? The front door opened. Ben, using his key like he still had the right. He stopped short when he saw Emily. I need to talk to Maggie, he said. Alone. Emily squeezed my shoulder before leaving. Ben took her seat, looking more disheveled than usual. The transfer to Colorado is happening sooner than expected. Next week. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I want Charlie to come with me. The calm in my voice surprised me. You want to take our son away from his school, his friends, his home? He'll adjust. Kids are resilient. Like he'll adjust to you living with Laura? To watching you destroy 2 families? His head snapped up. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone, opened the folder of evidence. Should we start with the house you bought together? Or the money you stole from Charlie's future? The color drained from his face. You had no right to protect my son? To expose your lies? I stood up, my shadow falling across him. You want a war, Ben? Because I have the nuclear option right here. Think about what you're doing, he said, but his voice shook. Think about Charlie. I am thinking about Charlie. I'm thinking about the day he'll learn what kind of man his father really is. I moved toward the door. You have 24 hours to tell Laura it's over and transfer the college fund back. Or everyone sees everything. You're bluffing. I opened the door. Try me. After he left, I called Daniel. We need to meet tonight. I'm ready, he said. Whatever it takes. I ended the call and walked upstairs to Charlie's room. He was sitting on his bed, clutching his dinosaur, and I knew he'd heard everything. Mom? His voice was small. Are we going to Colorado? I sat beside him, pulling him close. No, honey, we're staying right here, and I promise you, everything's going to be okay. It wasn't exactly a lie. Things would be okay, just not in the way anyone expected. Not even me. The annual neighborhood block party loomed ahead like an execution date. I sat in Daniel's garage, surrounded by strings of party lights we were testing, each bulb casting shadows that danced like accusations across the walls. Ben hasn't transferred the money back, I said, untangling another strand. And Laura's still planning to host the party. Daniel's laugh was hollow. Of course she is. Can't let anyone suspect her perfect life is falling apart. He checked his phone. The company announcement about the Colorado office goes out Monday. A light bulb shattered in my hand. I barely felt the sting. We can't wait any longer, Daniel said, watching me brush glass from my palm. They're going to take everything if we don't move first. The garage door opened, and Laura walked in, wearing her signature perfect smile. There you are, Daniel. Margaret, I didn't expect to see you here. Just helping with party prep. I held up the lights, letting her see the blood on my hand. Her smile flickered. How neighborly. Though I was hoping to discuss the party details with Daniel privately. No secrets between neighbors, right? The words tasted like poison. Laura's phone chimed. She glanced at it, and for a split second her mask slipped. Fear flashed across her face. Everything okay? Daniel asked, his voice carefully neutral. Fine, just work. She backed toward the door. I need to make some calls. After she left, Daniel showed me his laptop screen. A program was running, tracking Laura's phone activity. That message was from Ben. They're getting nervous. Good. I pulled up the event details on my phone. The block party's always the same. Laura makes her speech thanking everyone for being such wonderful neighbors. This year she'll have a different kind of audience participation. You're sure about this? Once we start... They're planning to announce their relationship at the office on Monday, I cut in. Present it as a fresh start. 2 people who found love and handled things responsibly. They'll paint us as the bitter exes who couldn't let go. A car door slammed next door. Through the window I saw Ben entering our house. My house. Probably for another attempt at manipulating Charlie. Did you see the latest transfer? Daniel pulled up the bank records. They're moving more money, faster now. My phone buzzed with a text from Charlie. Dad says we're having a family meeting tonight. Do I have to go? Another message followed from Ben. We need to discuss Charlie's future, all of us. Bring Laura's mortgage paperwork if you want to talk about that too. The threat was clear. They were done waiting. The party's tomorrow, I said, standing up. Time to give them the audience they deserve. I walked home, each step feeling heavier than the last. Through the kitchen window, I could see Ben sitting with Charlie at the dinner table, probably spinning more lies about our happy future in Colorado. Emily's words echoed in my head. You can't protect him forever. My phone buzzed again, Daniel sending the final piece of evidence we'd uncovered. An email chain between Ben and Laura discussing how to handle the unfortunate necessity of separating their children from their unstable parents. They weren't just planning to take our money and our dignity. They were going to take our children. I opened the door, watching Ben's face shift from fatherly concern to calculated wariness. Charlie looked between us, clutching his dinosaur like a shield. Perfect timing, Ben said. We were just discussing. Charlie, go upstairs, please. But Dad said, now, honey. After Charlie left, Ben's smile turned cold. You're only making this harder on everyone. I pulled out my phone, showing him the email chain. Unstable parents? You're proving my point right now. He stood up, towering over me. Think carefully about your next move, Maggie. Some bells can't be unrung. I met his gaze, feeling oddly calm. Funny, I was about to say the same thing to you. Tomorrow, at the block party, everyone would know exactly who Ben and Laura really were. The thought should have brought satisfaction, but all I felt was a deep, hollow certainty. There would be no winners here, only survivors. The block party hummed with forced cheerfulness, strings of lights casting shadows across fake smiles and whispered conversations. I stood near the dessert table, watching Laura work the crowd like a politician, Ben hovering nearby with his practiced charm. Charlie tugged at my sleeve. Mom, can I go play with Jake and Sarah? Stay where I can see you. My voice sounded distant, even to myself. Emily appeared at my elbow, gripping a wine glass too tightly. Daniel's ready? Are you sure about this? Before I could answer, Laura clinked her glass, gathering everyone's attention. Thank you all for coming to our annual neighborhood celebration. I felt the USB drive in my pocket like a burning coal. Daniel stood by the makeshift stage, laptop ready, waiting for my signal. Our community is built on trust, friendship, and family values, Laura continued, her perfect smile never wavering. Now, I whispered into my phone. The projector screen behind Laura flickered to life. Her voice faltered as emails, bank statements, and photos began scrolling across it. The crowd's murmur shifted from confusion to shock. What is this? Laura's voice cracked. The truth. I stepped forward, my heart pounding. About the affair, about the stolen money, about your plans to take our children to Colorado. Ben moved toward the laptop, but Daniel blocked his path. Don't, Daniel said quietly. It's already been sent to everyone's phones. The crowd parted as I walked toward them, phones buzzing with notifications. Laura's mask cracked, revealing raw panic beneath. You're making a scene, Ben hissed. Think about Charlie. I am thinking about Charlie. I turned to face our neighbors. They've been stealing from our children's futures to fund their affair. The proof is in your inboxes. Laura laughed, high and brittle. This is ridiculous. Daniel, tell them. Tell them what? Daniel's voice was ice. About the house you bought? The money you've been moving? The whispers grew louder. I saw recognition dawn on faces as they read their phones, followed by disgust, judgment, shock. Then Charlie's voice cut through the chaos. Dad? He stood at the edge of the crowd, clutching his dinosaur, staring at the screen where a particularly intimate email was displayed. Charlie, wait! Ben reached for him, but Charlie backed away. You said we were moving for your job. Charlie's voice trembled. You said Mom was being difficult. You lied. The moment fractured. Charlie turned and ran. Ben moved to follow, but I blocked his path. Haven't you done enough? Laura grabbed my arm. You've ruined everything. No, I said, shaking her off. You did that yourselves. But as I turned to follow Charlie, Ben's voice stopped me cold. I've already filed for emergency custody, claiming emotional instability. This little stunt proves my point. The ground seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Through the crowd's shocked murmurs, I heard Laura add, We have character witnesses, documentation, your obsession with revenge, your erratic behavior. Emily stepped forward. You manipulative. Save it, Ben cut her off. The hearing's Monday. Should be interesting. Explaining to a judge how you stalked and harassed us, invaded our privacy, turned our children against us. I looked around at the faces of our neighbors, some sympathetic, others uncertain, a few already turning away. What had seemed like justice now felt like a noose tightening around my neck. You won't win, I said, but my voice shook. Ben's smile was almost pitying. I already have. Come on, Laura. They left together, heads high, leaving me standing in the wreckage of my plan. Daniel touched my shoulder, but I barely felt it. Mom? Charlie's voice came from behind me, small and lost. Are they really taking me away? I turned to face my son, seeing the fear in his eyes, and realized with crushing clarity what I'd done. In my quest for justice, I'd given them exactly what they needed to destroy me. The party lights flickered overhead, casting alternating light and shadow across the scattered remains of my revenge, while somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled, a warning too late to heed. The courthouse hallway stretched before me like a gauntlet. Ben and Laura stood at the far end, heads bent together in conversation. Emily squeezed my hand before taking her seat on the witness bench. Ready? Daniel appeared beside me, holding a manila envelope. I nodded, watching Charlie through the window as he sat in the waiting area with Emily's husband, Kevin. My son hadn't spoken much since the block party, but his silence said everything. Mrs. Davis? My lawyer approached, frowning at her phone. There's been a development. Laura Mitchell wants to speak with you, alone. Ben's head snapped up at Laura's approach, his face darkening. Laura, don't... Enough, Ben! Her perfect mask had cracked, revealing something raw underneath. She gestured to an empty conference room. Inside, Laura paced like a caged animal. I'm pregnant. The words hit like a physical blow. Is it Ben's? Yes, she laughed, brittle and sharp. Found out yesterday. Convenient timing, right? Another weapon for the custody hearing. Why are you telling me this? Because I saw Charlie's face at the party. She stopped pacing. I saw what we did to him. What we're still doing. Before I could respond, the door opened. Ben stood there, fury radiating off him in waves. Whatever you're thinking, don't, he warned Laura. I found something else yesterday, too. Laura pulled out her phone, hands shaking. While packing for Colorado. Tell her about the offshore accounts, Ben. The ones you've been moving company money into. The color drained from Ben's face. You're lying. Am I? She turned to me. He's been embezzling for years. The house, the affair, it was all funded with stolen money. I have proof. Shut up! Ben grabbed for the phone, but Daniel appeared in the doorway, blocking his exit. The company's already investigating, Daniel said quietly. Anonymous tip. Ben's facade crumbled. In that moment, I saw him clearly. Not the charming man I'd married, but a cornered animal, desperate and dangerous. You really want to do this? He turned to me. Fine. Let's tell the judge everything. How you hacked my computer. How you and Daniel conspired. Tell them. Charlie's voice came from behind Daniel. He stood there, clutching his dinosaur, eyes bright with tears and determination. I'll tell them too. About the lies. About Colorado. About everything. Charlie, go back outside, Ben ordered. No! Charlie stepped into the room. I heard you and Laura talking last week. About the money. About making Mom look crazy so you could take me away. Laura pressed her phone into my hand. Everything's here. The accounts, the transfers, the emails, planning it all. I'm done protecting him. You'll lose everything, Ben hissed at her. I already have. She rested a hand on her stomach. But I won't let you destroy anyone else. The bailiff appeared in the doorway. Judge is ready. I looked at the phone in my hand, then at Charlie's determined face, and finally at Ben, the man who'd thought he could take everything from me. The hearing's canceled, I said. We're going to the police instead, right now. You can't? Watch me. I turned to my lawyer. Call the district attorney and the SEC. Ben lunged for the phone, but Daniel caught him. In the struggle, Charlie's dinosaur fell, splitting open along a seam. Papers spilled out. Documents Charlie had been secretly collecting, overheard conversations he'd written down, dates and times of suspicious calls. My son had been building his own case all along. Ben sagged in Daniel's grip, seeing the evidence of his son's quiet rebellion. Laura was already talking to the bailiff, confessing everything. I knelt beside Charlie, gathering his scattered notes. Why didn't you tell me? You were protecting me, he said simply. I wanted to protect you, too. Outside the conference room, I heard the growing commotion as police arrived. Ben's carefully constructed world was crumbling, but Charlie's hand was warm in mine, anchoring me to what really mattered. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about protecting what they never truly valued in the first place. The moving boxes made our living room look smaller. Charlie sat cross-legged on the floor, carefully wrapping his dinosaur collection in newspaper. Through the window, I could see Daniel loading his own moving truck, heading for a fresh start on the other side of town. Found something, Charlie said, pulling a crumpled paper from inside his favorite T-Rex. Another one of his secret notes, dated from before everything fell apart. I sat beside him, smoothing out the page. His childish handwriting documented a conversation between Ben and Laura about their Colorado dreams, followed by a simple question. Why isn't Mom enough? I don't need this anymore, Charlie said, balling up the paper. We're okay now, right? The newspaper headline on the coffee table caught my eye. Tech executive faces embezzlement charges. Ben's corporate headshot stared back at me, his practiced smile now seeming hollow. We're more than okay, I said, helping Charlie wrap another dinosaur. We're free. The doorbell rang. Laura stood there looking different, softer somehow, her perfect facade replaced by something more human. Her pregnancy was starting to show. The company's releasing the recovered funds, she said, holding out an envelope. Your portion of what Ben stole. Daniel has his too. I took the envelope without opening it. How are you doing? Taking it day by day. She touched her stomach. The baby deserves better than a prison visiting room, but she'll know the truth when she's old enough. No more perfect lies. Charlie appeared in the doorway. Is it a girl? Laura nodded, tears threatening. Would you like to be her honorary big brother? Help her understand things someday? Maybe, Charlie said, considering. If Mom says it's okay. The simple trust in his voice made my throat tight. After everything, he still looked to me for guidance, for protection. We'll see, I said. One day at a time. After Laura left, I found Charlie in his room, placing his last dinosaur in a box. The empty house next door cast long shadows across his wall. Mom? He held out a sealed envelope. I wrote this during the court stuff, when I was scared about everything. Inside was a letter, written in his careful school penmanship. Dear Mom, I know you think you have to be strong all the time, but I saw you crying when you thought I was asleep. It's okay. You taught me that being strong means telling the truth, even when it hurts. You're the strongest person I know. Love, Charlie. I didn't give it to you then, he said, but I want you to have it now. I pulled him close, breathing in the familiar scent of his hair. Outside, a moving truck engine started, Daniel beginning his own journey toward healing. Emily's car pulled into our driveway, right where Ben's Mercedes used to park. She'd been helping us pack, preparing for our move to the smaller house across town. Not running away, just starting fresh. Ready for pizza? She called through the window. Kevin's bringing Charlie's favorite, Charlie brightened. Can we eat it picnic style, since all the furniture's packed? Perfect idea. As Charlie ran downstairs, I looked around his half-packed room. The dinosaur collection was safely boxed, but one remained on his windowsill. The T-Rex with the split seam, the one that had carried his secret evidence. He'd repaired it carefully, the stitches small and precise. Like the dinosaur, we weren't broken anymore. Changed, scarred maybe, but stronger where we'd been mended. I picked up another box, feeling its weight. Not just possessions, but memories. Lessons learned, truths finally spoken. Below, Charlie's laughter mixed with Emily's voice, the sound of our chosen family coming together. Some would call it karma, how everything turned out. But standing there, surrounded by the pieces of our new life waiting to be unpacked, I realized it was something simpler. It was justice, yes. But more than that, it was freedom. The freedom to be imperfect, to be honest, to be ourselves. And that was better than any revenge could ever be.
I stared at the roasted chicken growing cold on my pristine white serving platter, watching as tiny droplets of grease congealed around its golden skin. The dinner party was supposed to be perfect. Instead, it became the moment I realized my husband had been slowly killing who I was, one small cut at a time. Anna here thinks she's quite the chef now that she's left her career to focus on more domestic pursuits, Ryan announced to his boss, Lucas, with that trademark smile that used to make my heart flutter. Now it just made my stomach turn. I gripped my wine glass tighter, feeling the stem might snap under the pressure. The red wine trembled slightly, matching the tremor in my hands. Though I have to say, Ryan continued, winking at Lucas, maybe she should have stuck to spreadsheets. At least those didn't come out dry. Lucas's wife tittered nervously while Lucas himself shifted in his chair, clearly uncomfortable. The silence that followed felt like a noose around my neck. Actually, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, I followed your mother's recipe exactly, Ryan. The one you always praise at her house. The look Ryan shot me could have frozen hell. I used to shrink from that look, make myself smaller, apologize for speaking out of turn. Not tonight. Speaking of work, Lucas interjected, clearly trying to ease the tension. Ryan tells me you were in marketing before? At Preston and Mills? Senior marketing executive, I corrected, ignoring Ryan's warning cough. I led their digital transformation campaign. We increased market share by 32% that year. Ryan's knife scraped against his plate with unnecessary force. Ancient history now. Anna's much happier focusing on our home, aren't you, sweetheart? 3 years ago, when Ryan had first suggested I quit my job, he'd painted such a pretty picture. We'd have more time together. Start a family. Build our dream life. What he'd really wanted was to clip my wings, keep me dependent, manageable. Oh yes, I smiled, refilling Lucas's wine glass. It's given me so much time to think. To really understand what I want from life. Ryan relaxed slightly, mistaking my words for submission. Poor, predictable Ryan. He never did understand that sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones that play dead first. The chicken is lovely, Anna, Lucas's wife offered kindly. And this wine pairing is excellent. Thank you, I replied, watching Ryan's jaw clench. He hated when others praised me, especially in front of his boss. I've been taking some sommelier classes online. Amazing what you can learn when you have the time. Ryan's fork clattered against his plate. Sommelier classes? First I'm hearing of this. Is it? I asked innocently. I must have mentioned it during one of your late nights at the office. With Evelyn. The color drained from Ryan's face. Lucas looked between us, suddenly very interested in his wine glass. I think it's time for dessert, Ryan announced, standing abruptly. Anna, help me in the kitchen? I rose gracefully, following him. As soon as we were out of earshot, he grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my flesh. What the hell do you think you're doing? He hissed. I looked down at his hand, then back up at his face. Making conversation with your boss. Isn't that what you wanted? The perfect corporate wife? Don't play games with me, he warned, releasing my arm. You're embarrassing yourself. No, Ryan, I replied softly, reaching past him to grab the dessert plates. I'm just getting started. I returned to the dining room, bearing tiramisu and a smile that felt like warfare. Ryan followed, his confident mask back in place, but I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. Good. Let him wonder. Let him worry. Because tonight wasn't just about a ruined dinner party. It was about the moment I stopped being Ryan Mitchell's perfectly crafted trophy wife and started becoming something far more dangerous, a woman with nothing left to lose. The bank statement trembled in my hands as I sat at our kitchen island. 3 separate transfers to an account I didn't recognize, each for exactly $4,000. The dates matched Ryan's late nights at the office. Funny how patterns emerge when you start looking for them. I heard Mia's car pull into the driveway and quickly saved photos of the statement to my phone. My hands were steady now, precise. Like a surgeon preparing for an operation. You look like hell, Mia announced, dropping her designer bag on the counter. She studied my face. What happened after I left the dinner party? Ryan's spending money we don't have, I said, sliding the statement across the marble surface. And I'm pretty sure I know where it's going. Mia scanned the numbers, her perfectly manicured nail tracing the suspicious transfers. Evelyn? Who else? The amount started right after she joined TechWave. That snake, Mia muttered, then caught herself. Sorry, but are you absolutely sure? This is a serious accusation, Anna. I pulled up the company directory on my phone. Notice anything about that account number? It matches the employee ID format TechWave uses. I remember it from when Ryan first started there. Jesus, Mia whispered. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Claire's name flashed across the screen. Anna, darling, my mother-in-law's voice dripped with artificial sweetness. I just had the most interesting lunch with Margaret from Ryan's office. She mentioned seeing him and that lovely Evelyn having quite an intimate dinner at Lou Blanc last week. I thought you should know. My grip tightened on the phone. How thoughtful of you, Claire. Was this during the charity gala I couldn't attend because Ryan said we couldn't afford the tickets? The silence on the other end was delicious. Oh dear, Claire finally managed. Perhaps I shouldn't have. No, you absolutely should have. Thank you, Claire. Really? I ended the call and looked at Mia, who was watching me with concern. You're scary calm right now, she observed. Because I finally understand the game, I replied, opening my laptop. And I'm done playing by his rules. I pulled up my old marketing contacts, fingers flying across the keyboard. 3 years ago, I'd led digital campaigns worth millions. Now I was about to launch the most important campaign of my life. What exactly are you planning? Mia asked, leaning over my shoulder. First, I need income he can't control. Remember Jessica from Preston and Mills? She owns that boutique downtown now. I'm meeting her tomorrow about a part-time position. Anna. Mia's voice held a warning. Then I start documenting everything. The transfers, the receipts, the late nights. Building a case. For divorce? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. For something much more satisfying. My phone buzzed again, a text from Ryan, working late. Don't wait up. I typed back, no problem. Having dinner with your mother anyway. She sends her love. Let him sweat over that one. You know he'll try to destroy you if he catches on, Mia said softly. I closed the laptop and met her worried gaze. He already did that, Mia. 3 years ago, when I let him convince me to give up everything I was to become his perfect little wife. The difference is, back then I helped him do it. And now? Now I'm going to show him exactly what happens when you underestimate the woman you tried to break. I stood up, suddenly energized. Want to help me go through his office? Mia hesitated for only a second before grabbing her bag. I'll take the desk, you take the filing cabinet? As we climbed the stairs to Ryan's home office, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, purpose. Every step was taking me closer to reclaiming not just my dignity, but my power. The lock on his office door was child's play. I'd watched him punch in the code countless times while he thought I was focused on being the perfect hostess. Just like I'd watched him slowly dismantle my confidence, my ambitions, my sense of self. Well, Ryan was about to learn that some things, once broken, don't put themselves back together the same way. Sometimes they come back sharper. Deadlier. And I was just getting started. The boutique's bell chimed as another customer left, clutching a designer bag I'd convinced her she couldn't live without. 2 weeks into my part-time hobby, as I'd explained it to Ryan, and I'd already doubled the store's sales. Jessica couldn't stop beaming. Just like old times, she said, counting the day's receipts. You haven't lost your touch. I was about to respond when I heard familiar voices outside. Through the storefront window, I spotted Ryan and Lucas heading toward the coffee shop next door. I ducked behind a display rack, motioning Jessica to silence. The board's getting suspicious, Ryan. Lucas's voice carried through the thin walls. These numbers don't add up, and Evelyn's department shouldn't be showing that kind of profit margin. Trust me, Lucas. Everything's under control. Like those missing development funds were under control? Christ, Ryan, if this gets out. It won't. Ryan's voice hardened. Unless someone's been talking? The conversation faded as they entered the coffee shop, but my hands were already shaking. Not from fear, from possibility. Anna? Jessica touched my arm. You okay? Better than okay, I said, straightening up. Listen, I need to make a call. Cover for me? In the back office, I dialed Claire's number. She answered on the first ring, as expected. Anna. I was just thinking about you. The country club is having their annual charity gala next month, and... Actually, I cut in, I was hoping you could help me with something. Ryan's been so stressed lately, and I want to surprise him with a romantic evening. Could you get his schedule from his assistant? She always loved you. Oh. Claire practically purred at being included in the conspiracy. Of course, darling. Anything to help you two reconnect. If she only knew. An hour later, my phone buzzed with screenshots of Ryan's calendar, including his private meetings with Evelyn. But more importantly, his login credentials for the company system, saved by his ever-helpful assistant. I was reviewing the information when the boutique's bell chimed again. I froze at the sound of Evelyn's voice. "This is such a cute shop," she was saying to someone. "I need something for a business dinner tonight. The executive team's wives will all be there." I emerged from the back office, clipboard in hand, professional smile fixed in place. "Welcome to Vintage Vogue. Can I help you find something?" Evelyn turned, recognition flickering across her face before she masked it with polite surprise. "Anna? I didn't know you worked here." "Just keeping busy," I replied, noting how she shifted her designer purse, the same model I'd seen charged to our joint account last month. "Business dinner, you said? How interesting." Ryan didn't mention anything about it. Color touched her cheeks. "Oh, it was very last minute. Actually, maybe I should try somewhere else." "Nonsense," I said, selecting a red dress from the rack. "This would be perfect. The color really makes a statement." The same color as the lipstick stains I'd found on Ryan's collar last week. She took the dress, hesitating. "It's beautiful, but..." "Trust me," I smiled, all teeth. "I know exactly what works for these events." The wives can be so judgmental, can't they? Our eyes met in the mirror as she held the dress against herself. For a moment, I saw fear flicker across her face. Good. She should be afraid. After she left, without the dress, I pulled out my phone and opened my email. The login credentials Claire had sent were burning a hole in my pocket. One quick look at the company's financial records would confirm what I'd overheard. But my finger hovered over the keyboard. This wasn't just about catching Ryan anymore. This was about dismantling everything he'd built on lies. And I needed to be smart about it. I dialed Mia instead. "Remember that corporate law friend of yours?" I asked when she answered. "The one who specializes in whistleblower cases?" "I think it's time we had coffee." The pieces were falling into place faster than I'd anticipated. Ryan thought he was playing chess, carefully positioning his pieces, protecting his king. But he'd forgotten something crucial. In chess, the queen is the most powerful piece on the board. And I was done being a pawn. The USB drive felt heavy in my palm as I sat across from Sarah Chen, Mia's corporate lawyer friend, in her downtown office. Through the wall-to-wall windows, I could see TechWave's building looming in the distance, a glass monument to my husband's lies. "These financial records," Sarah said, scrolling through her laptop, "they're definitely irregular. But proving Ryan's involvement will be tricky. He's covered his tracks well." I pulled out my phone, played the recording from the coffee shop. Lucas's voice filled the room. "These numbers don't add up, and Evelyn's department shouldn't be showing that kind of profit margin." Sarah's eyebrows shot up. "That's better. But we still need..." My phone buzzed. Claire's name flashed on the screen. "Anna, darling," she burst out before I could speak. "The most wonderful news. Ryan's planning to announce his promotion at the charity gala next month. Lucas told me himself." My blood ran cold. "Promotion? To Chief Financial Officer. Can you believe it? Though I suppose with poor Marcus's heart attack." The rest of her words faded into white noise. Marcus Thompson. TechWave's current CFO. The only person who could have spotted the financial irregularities. "Claire," I interrupted, "when did Marcus have his heart attack?" "Just yesterday." Such terrible timing, right before the audit he was planning. "Ryan says he'll handle everything now, of course." I ended the call, my hands shaking. "We need to move faster," I told Sarah. "Ryan's about to destroy evidence." Sarah leaned forward. "Anna, slow down. If we rush this..." He gave his CFO a heart attack. You can't prove that. Yet. I stood up, gathering my things. But I know someone who can help. An hour later, I was back at the boutique, watching Evelyn try on dresses for the charity gala. She'd been coming in regularly, perhaps hoping to run into me, perhaps seeking absolution. The blue one, I suggested, noting how she startled at my voice. It matches your eyes. Though I hope you didn't charge it to the same account as the last 3 dresses. She froze, half-zipped. I don't know what you mean. $4,000. 3 times. To your employee account. I stepped closer, adjusting her zipper with deliberate care. The same account that received a substantial bonus right before Marcus Thompson's unfortunate accident. Her face went ash-white. How did you? I was a marketing executive, Evelyn. Numbers tell stories. And yours is particularly interesting. I smoothed the fabric across her shoulders, our eyes meeting in the mirror. Especially the part where Ryan convinced you to help him hide the missing development funds. He said it was temporary, she whispered. Just until the audit. And now there won't be an audit. Convenient, isn't it? She turned to face me, tears threatening. I never meant. I didn't know about Marcus. But you suspected. I handed her a tissue. Help me stop him, Evelyn. Before someone else gets hurt. He'll destroy me. No, I said softly. He'll try. But I won't let him. Neither will Sarah Chen from Morrison and Associates. I placed her card on the dressing room bench. Your choice. That evening, I prepared dinner as usual, listening to Ryan boast about his upcoming promotion. Each word was a knife in my gut, knowing what he'd done to achieve it. We should celebrate, I suggested, pouring his wine. Maybe invite Lucas and his wife over? Actually, Ryan paused, studying my face. I was thinking just the 2 of us. We've been distant lately. Maybe it's time to focus on us again. I met his gaze, saw the calculation behind his charm. He was worried, trying to secure his home base before making his final move at work. That sounds perfect, I lied, raising my glass. To new beginnings. He smiled, relief evident in his shoulders. Poor Ryan. He still thought he was the one in control. My phone vibrated silently in my pocket, a text from Sarah, Evelyn's in. Meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. I took another sip of wine, hiding my smile. The pieces were falling into place, and Ryan had no idea he was about to lose everything he'd built on other people's destruction. Starting with me. The anonymous email to TechWave's board took 3 minutes to write and 1 second to send. I sat in Sarah's office, watching the delivery confirmation appear on my screen, feeling nothing but a hollow certainty. Last chance to back out, Sarah said, but we both knew I wouldn't. My phone lit up. Ryan's face flashed on the screen. I let it ring. He'll know something's wrong, Sarah warned. He already does. I showed her the text from Evelyn that had arrived an hour ago. Ryan's asking questions about the financial records. He knows someone accessed them. The phone rang again. This time, Lucas's name appeared. I answered, putting it on speaker. Hello? Anna, Lucas's voice was tight. Is Ryan with you? He's not answering his phone, and we've got a situation here. What kind of situation? The board received some concerning information about the development funds and Marcus's audit. A pause. Anna, did you know anything about this? I caught Sarah's warning look. About what, exactly? Never mind. Just, if you see him, tell him to call me immediately. The line went dead. Within seconds, my phone exploded with notifications. Claire was calling. Mia was texting. Even Jessica from the boutique, Ryan was just here looking for you. He seemed angry. We should get you somewhere safe, Sarah started, but I was already standing. No. I need to be home when he arrives. It has to play out right. Anna. I've got the security system recording everything. The police on speed dial. And 3 years of rage keeping me steady. I drove home through streets that felt simultaneously familiar and foreign. The house looked exactly as I'd left it this morning, but everything had changed. Ryan's car wasn't in the driveway, but the front door was unlocked. I stepped inside, hearing movement upstairs in his office. "Ryan?" The shuffling stopped. Then footsteps, heavy and quick, descended the stairs. "Where are the files?" His face was flushed. "I ask you. "The ones you took from my office." "I didn't take anything from your office." "Technically true. I'd copied files, not taken them." "Don't lie to me." He moved closer, that familiar mix of charm and menace radiating off him. "You've been busy, haven't you? Working at the boutique, meeting with lawyers. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Like I found out about Evelyn? Or Marcus?" He laughed, but it was brittle. "You don't know what you're talking about. $4,000, 3 times. To keep her quiet about the missing development funds. Then Marcus starts asking questions, planning an audit, and suddenly has a heart attack." I met his gaze steadily. "Convenient timing. You're being dramatic." But his eyes darted to the stairs, to his office. "I would never. Hurt anyone?" I touched my arm where he'd grabbed me that dinner party night, watching him flinch at the gesture. "We both know that's not true." His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, face darkening. "The board's calling an emergency meeting. Whatever you think you're doing, Anna, stop it now. You have no idea what you're risking." "Actually, I do. I'm risking everything you built on lies. Your career. Your reputation." I smiled, feeling powerful for the first time in years. "Your perfect little wife." He moved so fast I barely saw it, his hand reaching for my throat. But I was faster, stepping back, my own phone already recording. "Try it," I whispered. "Give me one more reason to destroy you." His hand dropped. For a moment, I saw real fear in his eyes. Then his phone buzzed again, and he backed away, straightening his tie. "This isn't over." "No," I agreed. "But it will be soon." He left, the door slamming behind him. I waited until his car started before sinking to the floor, hands shaking as I texted Sarah, "It's done." He took the bait. The board meeting tomorrow would reveal everything, the fraud, the harassment, possibly even worse. And Ryan, thinking he could control the narrative, would walk right into it. I touched my throat where his hand had almost reached. The security camera in the corner had caught everything. One more piece of evidence in a case built on years of careful observation. Ryan was right about one thing, it wasn't over. But the ending? That had been written the moment he'd first tried to break me. TechWave's annual charity gala sparkled with false promises and champagne bubbles. I adjusted my black dress, bought with my own money from the boutique, and watched Ryan work the room. He looked confident, but I caught the slight tremor in his hand as he lifted his glass. Quite the turnout. Lucas appeared beside me, his own smile strained. "Though I notice Marcus's wife isn't here." "How is he?" I asked, noting Ryan's attention shifting our way. "Still in intensive care. The doctors found traces of something unexpected in his system." I let that hang in the air between us. Lucas cleared his throat. "The board's beginning their investigation tomorrow. Ryan claims he can explain everything." "I'm sure he does." I smiled as Claire approached, practically vibrating with excitement. "There you are. Ryan's about to make his announcement. Isn't it wonderful?" My phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn, he knows. He threatened to implicate me in everything. "I'm sorry, Anna." The room suddenly felt too small. Ryan was ascending the small stage, that practiced charm radiating from every pore. I caught Sarah's eye across the room. She wasn't supposed to be here, but we'd planned for contingencies. Distinguished colleagues, Ryan began, family, friends. Before I make tonight's announcement, I want to address some rumors that have been circulating. This wasn't part of the plan. I moved toward the exit, but Claire grabbed my arm. Your husband's speaking, dear. Don't be rude. Recent allegations have been made about financial irregularities at TechWave, Ryan continued. I want to assure everyone that these claims have been thoroughly investigated. He paused, finding me in the crowd. His smile turned predatory. In fact, we've discovered the source of these malicious accusations. Someone who accessed company files illegally, who conspired with others to damage TechWave's reputation. The room went silent. I felt dozens of eyes turn toward me. My wife, Anna Mitchell, aided by our former employee Evelyn Parker, has been attempting to manipulate company data to frame innocent parties. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Claire's hand dropped from my arm as if burned. Security footage shows Anna accessing restricted areas. Bank records show suspicious transfers to accounts linked to her new workplace. And sadly, he held up his phone, I have proof of her conspiracy right here. My own words from texts to Evelyn appeared on the screen behind him, carefully edited to remove context. I looked for Sarah, but she had vanished. The board has already been notified, Ryan continued. Criminal charges are being considered. Lucas wouldn't meet my eyes. Claire was already moving away, aligning herself with the winning side. I should have run. Should have denied everything. Instead, I laughed. The sound cut through the murmurs, sharp as broken glass. Ryan faltered. Show them the rest, I said, my voice carrying in the silence. Show them what you did to Marcus when he discovered the truth. Security, Ryan called, but I was already moving forward. Show them the real transfers, Ryan. The ones to Evelyn's account. Show them the footage from our house last night, when you tried to strangle me. She's clearly unstable, Ryan said, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. Actually, a new voice cut in, I'd like to see that footage. Sarah emerged from the crowd, followed by 2 police officers, and, my heart jumped, Marcus Thompson himself, pale but very much alive in a wheelchair. Impossible, Ryan whispered. You were. In protective custody, Marcus finished. After my doctor found traces of poison in my system. The same poison traced to a purchase on your corporate card. The room erupted in chaos. I watched Ryan's face as his carefully constructed world began to crumble, as security moved toward him rather than me, as his phone buzzed with what I knew would be messages from the board. He looked at me one last time, and I saw the moment he realized, I hadn't just outplayed him, I'd learned from him. Every manipulation, every careful plan, every subtle destruction of someone's life. He'd taught me well. But I'd become a better student than he'd ever imagined. The handcuffs clicked around his wrists, and I felt nothing but hollow victory. The revenge I'd dreamed of tasted like ashes, but at least they were his ashes, not mine. Not anymore. The police station's interview room smelled of stale coffee and desperation. Ryan sat across from me, still in his gala tuxedo, though his bow tie hung loose around his neck. Between us lay the separation papers Sarah had prepared. You really think you've won? His voice was quiet, dangerous. Like the moment before a storm breaks. Sign the papers, Ryan. He leaned forward, those familiar dark eyes searching my face. 3 years of marriage, and I never saw it coming. The dutiful wife, planning my destruction all along. Not all along, I corrected, pushing the papers closer. Just since you started destroying me. A knock interrupted us. Lucas entered, followed by Evelyn. Ryan's face contorted. You brought them into this? They brought themselves. I nodded to Evelyn, who placed a USB drive on the table. Show him. The laptop screen flickered to life. Security footage from Marcus's office played silently, Ryan slipping something into a coffee cup, Marcus collapsing hours later. I kept everything, Evelyn said softly. Every conversation, every transfer, every threat. Insurance, I told myself. But really, I was just a coward. Ryan's laugh was hollow. And now you're what? Growing a conscience? Now I'm choosing a different path, she replied, moving toward the door. Like Anna did. Lucas cleared his throat. The board's decision is final, Ryan. TechWave will be pressing charges. You can't. We already have. Lucas placed another document beside the separation papers. Your resignation, effective immediately. Ryan's hands curled into fists. I recognized the tension in his shoulders, the prelude to violence I'd learned to fear. Everything I did, he hissed, I did for us. For our future. No. I stood, feeling stronger with each word. You did it for yourself. The money, the power, the control, it was always about you. I was just another acquisition. Something to own, to shape, to break. I made you who you are. You tried to unmake me, I corrected. But here's the thing about breaking something, Ryan. Sometimes the pieces come back together sharper. He moved suddenly, lunging across the table. But this time I didn't flinch. The officers watching through the one-way glass burst in, restraining him as Lucas and Evelyn backed away. You think this is over? Ryan shouted as they pulled him back. You think you can just walk away? I picked up the separation papers, now scattered across the floor. One page had torn right through the signature line where his name should be. Actually, I said, I already have. Your signature is just a formality. Like I was to you. I gathered my things, leaving the torn papers on the table. He could sign them or not, it didn't matter anymore. His world was crumbling either way. At the door, I paused. You know what the difference is between your revenge and mine, Ryan? Yours was about power. Mine was about freedom. Anna, his voice cracked, suddenly vulnerable. The mask finally slipping. Please. We can start over. For a moment, I saw him as he'd been when we first met, charming, ambitious, seemingly perfect. But now I saw through the charm to the hollow core beneath. Goodbye, Ryan. Outside, Mia waited in her car. She didn't ask questions, just drove as I watched the police station shrink in the rearview mirror. You okay? She finally asked. I touched my throat where Ryan had tried to grab me at the gala, feeling only smooth skin. No bruises. No fear. No chains. I will be. My phone buzzed, a message from Sarah, separation papers filed. Criminal charges pending. You're free. Free. Such a simple word for such a complex feeling. I'd gotten my revenge, but somehow it felt less like victory and more like liberation. Like waking up from a long, dark dream into a morning full of possibilities. Take me to the boutique, I told Mia. I have a shift in an hour. She smiled, understanding. This wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. My beginning. Finally, gloriously mine. The last box from my old life sat on Jessica's desk at the boutique, filled with marketing proposals and campaign ideas. She studied them with growing excitement while I arranged a window display. These are brilliant, Anna. The digital integration, the brand positioning. She looked up. I'm not letting you stay part-time anymore. I need you running marketing for all 3 locations. Through the window, I watched Claire approach the store, hesitating at the entrance. Our first interaction since the gala. Since everything fell apart. Take your time, Jessica said, gathering the proposals. I'll be in the back. The bell chimed as Claire entered, clutching her designer purse like a shield. I brought this, she said, holding out a small envelope. It was in Ryan's study. I thought you should have it. Inside was a photograph from our wedding day. I was laughing at something, unaware of the camera. Ryan was watching me with what I'd once mistaken for love. He's accepting the plea deal, Claire continued. The board agreed not to press additional charges if he cooperates with the investigation. Is that why you're here? To plead his case one last time? She straightened, and for a moment I saw where Ryan got his pride. No. I'm here because I failed you. I saw what was happening and I chose to look away. It was easier to believe in the perfect life Ryan presented than to acknowledge the truth. It usually is. You could have destroyed him completely, she said quietly. The evidence you had, what he did to Marcus, you could have ensured he never recovered. I turned back to the window display, adjusting a silk scarf. That's what Ryan would have done. But I didn't want to become him. I just wanted to be free. And are you? Free? My reflection in the window caught my eye, shoulders straight, head high, no tension in my jaw. No fear. Getting there. Claire moved toward the door, then paused. The house, he signed it over to you. Part of the settlement. Sell it, I said. Give the money to Marcus's medical fund. I don't want anything from that life anymore. After she left, I found one last item at the bottom of the box, a handwritten note from Ryan from our first anniversary. To my perfect wife, it began. Thank you for becoming everything I needed you to be. I'd treasured those words once. Now they read like a confession. The bell chimed again. Mia entered, followed by Evelyn. An unlikely alliance forged in the wreckage of Ryan's manipulation. Ready for lunch? Mia asked. That new marketing firm is eager to meet you. Just need to finish this display. Evelyn touched a cashmere sweater, her fingers trembling slightly. The investigators called again. They need more testimony about the financial transfers. You don't have to do it alone, I told her. Sarah will be there. So will I. She nodded, something like hope flickering across her face. I placed the last item in the window, a delicate silver chain with a key pendant. Not quite broken, but transformed into something new. Something stronger. Perfect, Jessica called from across the store. Though I'd shifted slightly left. I smiled, leaving it exactly where it was. Some things didn't need to be perfect anymore. They just needed to be true. The wedding photo still lay on the counter. I picked it up one last time, studying the woman I'd been, so eager to please, to transform herself into someone else's ideal. Coming? Mia called from the door. I left the photo on Jessica's desk, next to my new business cards, Anna Mitchell, Marketing Director. The bell chimed as we stepped into the sunlight. Ahead lay lunch meetings and court dates, therapy sessions, and fresh starts. The path wasn't clear or certain, but it was mine. And this time, I wouldn't let anyone else define who I was meant to be.
I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, my hands trembling as I gripped the edge of the sink. Mom's words echoed in my head, each one a dagger to my heart. Jordan, honey, I'm worried about you, she had said over our weekly Sunday brunch. You're not getting any younger, and I just want to see you settled before. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to wash away the memory of her concerned eyes. At 35, I'd always thought I had plenty of time. But seeing the fear in Mom's face, the unspoken dread of leaving me alone in the world, it shook me to my core. A gentle knock on the door startled me. Jor, you okay in there? It was Nicole, my younger sister. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Yeah, I'm fine. Nicole raised an eyebrow, clearly not buying it. Mom got to you, didn't she? I nodded, unable to find the words. Come on, she said, grabbing my hand. Let's grab a coffee. You look like you need it. 20 minutes later, we were seated at our favorite cafe, steaming lattes in front of us. Nicole leaned forward, her eyes full of understanding. Look, I know Mom means well, but you can't let her pressure you into something you're not ready for. I sighed, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. It's not just that, Nick. You should have seen her face. She's scared, and I can't help but feel like I'm letting her down. You're not letting anyone down, Nicole insisted. You have a great career, your own place, you're doing just fine. But what if she's right? I blurted out. What if I've been so focused on work that I've missed out on finding someone? What if? Stop right there. Nicole cut me off. You haven't missed out on anything. But if you really want to explore your options, why don't we start small? There's a speed dating event at the community center next week. Why don't you give it a shot? I nearly choked on my latte. Speed dating? Are you serious? Nicole grinned. Deadly. Come on, what's the worst that could happen? I could die of embarrassment, I offered. Or, she countered, you could meet someone interesting. At the very least, it'll give Mom something to smile about. I hesitated, but the image of Mom's worried face flashed through my mind again. Fine, I conceded, but you owe me big time. Deal, Nicole said, raising her mug in a mock toast. Now, let's talk about what you're going to wear. The next week flew by in a blur of work deadlines and increasingly panicked phone calls with Nicole. Before I knew it, I was standing outside the community center, my heart pounding like a jackhammer. You can do this, I muttered to myself, smoothing down the new dress Nicole had insisted I buy. It's just a few hours. No big deal. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door. The room was already buzzing with activity, filled with nervous laughter and the clink of glasses. I scanned the crowd, feeling overwhelmed. First time, I turned to find a man about my age smiling at me. He had kind eyes and an easygoing demeanor that immediately put me at ease. Is it that obvious? I asked, managing a small laugh. He shrugged. Takes one to know one. I'm Brad. Jordan, I replied, shaking his offered hand. Well, Jordan, he said, gesturing towards the room. What do you say we face this madness together? For the first time that evening, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't such a bad idea after all. Lead the way, I said, following Brad into the crowd, unaware that this simple decision would set in motion a chain of events that would change my life forever. I stood in front of my closet, staring at a sea of muted colors and practical work attire. Nicole's words from our shopping trip yesterday echoed in my mind. Jordan, you're gorgeous. It's time to let the world see it. With a deep breath, I reached for the vibrant red blouse we'd bought. It felt daring, almost rebellious. As I slipped it on, I caught my reflection in the mirror. For the first time in years, I didn't see a software engineer. I saw a woman. The office was abuzz with energy as I walked in. Heads turned, and I felt a flutter of self-consciousness. Wow, Jordan, my colleague Sarah exclaimed. You look amazing. What's the occasion? I felt my cheeks warm. No occasion, just trying something new. Sarah grinned. Well, it suits you. You should dress like this more often. As the day progressed, I found myself standing taller, smiling more. The compliments kept coming, each one boosting my confidence a little higher. By lunchtime, I was riding a wave of newfound self-assurance when my phone buzzed. It was Mom. Jordan, honey, she said, her voice tinged with excitement. I hope you haven't forgotten about dinner tonight. I've invited the Thompsons. Their son, Mark, is visiting from Chicago. He's a doctor, you know. My stomach dropped. Mom, we've talked about this. I'm not interested in being set up. But, sweetheart, Mark is such a nice young man. Just give him a chance. For me? I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of her expectations. Fine, Mom, I'll be there. The rest of the day passed in a blur of coding and meetings. As I drove to Mom's house that evening, my earlier confidence began to waver. What was I thinking? Trying to change myself? Mom greeted me at the door, her eyes widening as she took in my appearance. Oh, Jordan, you look lovely. Before I could respond, she ushered me into the living room where the Thompsons sat with their son. Mark stood up, offering a polite smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Dinner was a painful affair. Mark droned on about his medical practice while Mom beamed at us, clearly envisioning wedding bells. I pushed my food around my plate, feeling more out of place with each passing minute. As Mom cleared the dishes, Mrs. Thompson leaned in. So, Jordan, do you have any plans to settle down? A career is nice, but there's nothing like having a family. I felt a surge of anger. Actually, I'm quite happy with my life as it is. The room fell silent. Mom returned, her face a mask of disappointment. Jordan, why don't you help me in the kitchen? Once we were alone, she turned to me. Honey, I'm just trying to help. You're not getting any younger, and stop it, Mom, I snapped, surprising us both. I'm tired of you trying to fix me. There's nothing wrong with my life. Tears welled in her eyes. I just want you to be happy. I am happy, I insisted, but the words felt hollow. The drive home was a blur of conflicting emotions. As I walked into my apartment, my phone buzzed with a text from Nicole. How'd it go with Mom's setup? I sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. Disaster, I typed back. I don't know what I'm doing anymore, Nick. Her response was immediate. "Come over tomorrow. I have an idea." The next morning I found myself at Nicole's doorstep, still feeling raw from the previous night's events. "Okay," Nicole said as soon as I walked in, her eyes gleaming with determination. "We're going to that speed dating event." I groaned. "Nick, I don't think—" "No arguments," she cut me off. "You tried Mom's way, now we're doing this my way." As I looked at my sister's resolute face, I realized I had a choice to make. I could retreat back into my comfortable, predictable life, or I could take a leap into the unknown. With a mix of trepidation and excitement, I nodded. "All right, let's do it." Little did I know that decision would set me on a path that would change everything. The community center buzzed with nervous energy as I stepped inside, my heart pounding. Nicole gave my hand a reassuring squeeze before disappearing into the crowd. I was on my own. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our speed dating event." The coordinator's voice rang out. "You'll have 5 minutes with each partner. When you hear the bell, move to the next table. Ready? Begin." I sat down at my first table, facing a man with a receding hairline and a forced smile. "Hi, I'm Steve," he said, his eyes darting around the room. "Jordan," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. The next few encounters blurred together, a parade of awkward small talk and feigned interest. By the 4th round, I was ready to bolt. Then I saw him. He was tall, with kind eyes and a genuine smile that put me at ease instantly. As he sat down, I noticed calluses on his hands, a working man's hands. "I'm Brad," he said, his voice warm and deep. "Jordan," I replied, feeling a flutter in my stomach. "So, Jordan," he leaned in, his eyes twinkling, "what brings a beautiful woman like you to a place like this?" I laughed, surprised by his directness. "Would you believe my sister dragged me here?" Brad grinned. "I'd believe it. My buddy did the same to me. Said I needed to get out there." We fell into easy conversation, discussing our jobs, our families, our dreams. Before I knew it, the bell rang. "Time's up," I said, feeling a pang of disappointment. Brad hesitated, then quickly scribbled something on a napkin. "I know we're supposed to wait until the end, but here's my number. I'd love to continue this conversation over coffee sometime." As he moved to the next table, I clutched the napkin, a mix of excitement and trepidation washing over me. The rest of the event passed in a blur. As soon as it ended, I found Nicole waiting by the door. "Well?" she asked, eyebrows raised. I showed her the napkin. "I met someone." Nicole squealed, drawing curious glances. "Details now." We headed to a nearby cafe where I recounted my meeting with Brad. Nicole listened intently, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "He sounds perfect, Jor," she said. "When are you going to call him?" I hesitated. "I don't know, Nick. What if—" "No what ifs," she cut me off. "You're calling him. Right now." Before I could protest, Nicole had snatched my phone and dialed the number. "It's ringing," she mouthed, handing it back to me. "Hello?" Brad's voice came through the speaker. "Hi, Brad. It's Jordan from the speed dating event." "Jordan, I'm glad you called. I was hoping we could grab that coffee." We made plans for the following evening, and as I hung up, I felt a mix of excitement and terror. The next day, I stood in front of the mirror, scrutinizing my outfit. The red blouse from before felt too bold now. I changed into a soft blue sweater, then back to the red blouse. By the time I settled on an outfit, I was already running late. I rushed to the cafe, my nerves frayed. As I burst through the door, I saw Brad sitting at a corner table, looking up expectantly. Our eyes met, and he smiled that warm smile that had captivated me the night before. "Jordan," he said, standing to greet me. "I was starting to worry you'd changed your mind." "Never," I replied, surprising myself with my boldness. As we sat down, Brad reached across the table and took my hand. "I have a confession to make," he said, his expression serious. "I've never done anything like this before. But there's something about you, Jordan. I can't explain it, but I feel like I've known you my whole life." I felt a lump form in my throat. This was moving fast, too fast. But as I looked into Brad's earnest eyes, I realized I felt the same inexplicable connection. "I feel it too," I whispered. Brad's face lit up, and in that moment I knew my life was about to change forever. What I didn't know was whether that change would lead to happiness or heartbreak. 2 years flew by in a whirlwind of love and laughter. Brad and I had grown closer than I ever thought possible, our lives intertwining like vines. As I stood in front of the mirror on my wedding day, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. Gone was the hesitant, career-focused Jordan. In her place stood a bride, radiant with joy and hope. "You look beautiful, honey," Mom said, her eyes glistening with tears as she adjusted my veil. I turned to face her, my heart swelling with emotion. "Thank you, Mom, for everything." She pulled me into a tight embrace. "I'm so happy for you, Jordan. Brad is a wonderful man." As we broke apart, a shadow crossed her face. "I just wish his family could be here to share this day." I felt a pang of sadness. Brad's strained relationship with his parents had been a source of tension throughout our engagement. They'd refused to attend the wedding, citing irreconcilable differences with their son's life choices. "We're his family now, Mom," I said, squeezing her hand. "That's all that matters." The ceremony was simple but beautiful. As Brad and I exchanged vows, I felt a sense of completeness I'd never experienced before. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, the small gathering of friends and family erupted in cheers. At the reception, Nicole cornered me by the punch bowl, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "So, Mrs. Bradford," she teased, "how does it feel to be a married woman?" I laughed, still giddy from the day's events. "Honestly, it feels amazing." Nicole's expression softened. "I'm happy for you, Jor. But—" she hesitated, glancing around to ensure we weren't overheard. "Are you sure about Brad? I mean, with his family situation and all." I felt a flicker of annoyance. "Brad can't help his family, Nick. He's a good man." I know, she said, holding up her hands in surrender. "I just worry about you, that's all." Before I could respond, Brad appeared at my side, wrapping an arm around my waist. "Everything okay here, ladies?" I leaned into him, pushing away my doubts. "Everything's perfect." As the night wore on, I found myself watching Brad interact with my family. He was charming, attentive, everything I could have hoped for in a husband. Yet there was a nagging feeling I couldn't shake, a sense that something was off. Later, as we slow danced under the twinkling lights, I voiced my concerns. "Brad, are you sure you're okay with all this? With becoming part of my family?" He pulled back slightly, his brow furrowed. "Of course, Jordan. Why wouldn't I be? It's just... I know how hard it's been with your parents. I don't want you to feel like you're replacing them, or—" Brad cut me off with a kiss. "Your family is my family now," he said firmly. I couldn't be happier. His words should have reassured me, but instead, they sent a chill down my spine. There was an intensity in his eyes that I'd never seen before, a hunger that both thrilled and frightened me. As the reception wound down, Mom pulled me aside for one last moment alone. "Jordan, sweetheart," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "I want you to have this." She pressed a small velvet box into my hands. Inside was a delicate gold locket, clearly an antique. "It's been in our family for generations," Mom explained. "I want you to have it now, to pass on to your own daughter someday." Tears welled in my eyes as I clasped the locket around my neck. "Thank you, Mom. I'll treasure it always." As Brad and I drove away from the reception, waving goodbye to our loved ones, I fingered the locket, lost in thought. I was starting a new chapter of my life, filled with promise and love. But as I glanced at Brad's profile in the dim car light, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was also leaving something behind. A part of myself I might never get back. Little did I know, this day marked not just the beginning of my marriage, but the start of a journey that would test the very foundations of everything I believed about love, family, and myself. The first year of marriage with Brad was like a dream. We settled into a cozy routine, our lives intertwining seamlessly. Every Sunday we'd visit Mom for dinner, and I watched with joy as Brad and Mom grew closer. He'd help her with household repairs, listen to her stories, and even started calling her Mom himself. One Sunday evening, as we were leaving Mom's house, Brad surprised me. "You know, Jordan, I've been thinking," he said, his eyes twinkling. "Maybe it's time we start thinking about having a family of our own." My heart skipped a beat. "Really? You want to have kids?" He nodded, pulling me close. "Seeing you with your mom, it makes me realize what I missed out on. I want to create that kind of love and warmth in our own home." I felt a rush of emotions, excitement, fear, love. "Oh, Brad," I whispered, burying my face in his chest. "I'd love that." The next few months were a whirlwind of planning and dreaming. We turned our spare room into a nursery, painted soft yellow with little ducks on the walls. Mom was over the moon, already knitting tiny booties and blankets. But But as the months passed with no positive pregnancy test, the excitement began to wane. I started to feel the pressure, the disappointment in Brad's eyes each time I shook my head. The doctor's visits became more frequent, the tests more invasive. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Bradford," the fertility specialist said one day, her voice gentle, "but it seems you have some complications that may make it difficult for you to conceive naturally." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Brad squeezed my hand, but I could feel the tension in his grip. That night, as we lay in bed, Brad turned to me. "Jordan, I've been thinking, what if we considered adoption?" I propped myself up on one elbow, studying his face in the dim light. "Adoption? Are you sure?" He nodded, his eyes earnest. "I know it's not what we planned, but think about it. We could give a child a loving home, a family. Isn't that what really matters?" I felt a surge of love for this man who continually surprised me with his compassion. "You're right," I said, leaning in to kiss him. "Let's do it." The adoption process was grueling. Mountains of paperwork, invasive home studies, and endless waiting. But through it all, Brad was my rock. He never wavered, never complained. His dedication only made me love him more. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we got the call. A baby girl, just 3 months old, needed a home. We rushed to the agency, our hearts pounding with anticipation. The moment they placed her in my arms, I knew. This was our daughter. I looked up at Brad, tears streaming down my face, and saw the same emotion mirrored in his eyes. "She's perfect," he whispered, gently stroking her cheek. We named her Lily, after my grandmother. As we brought her home, I felt a sense of completeness I'd never experienced before. Our little family was whole. The next few weeks were a blur of sleepless nights and endless diaper changes. But through it all, Brad was there, changing diapers, singing lullabies, and making midnight formula runs. One night, as I watched Brad gently rock Lily to sleep, I felt a twinge of unease. He was so perfect, so devoted. It almost seemed too good to be true. "Brad," I said softly, not wanting to wake Lily, "are you really okay with all this? With adopting, I mean. It's not what we originally planned." He looked up at me, his eyes shining with an intensity that took my breath away. "Jordan, this is everything I've ever wanted. You, Lily, our family. I wouldn't change a thing." His words should have reassured me, but instead they sent a chill down my spine. There was something in his voice, a desperation I'd never heard before. As he turned back to Lily, cooing softly, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Brad's devotion than met the eye. Little did I know, this moment of doubt was just the beginning. The foundation of our perfect life was about to be shaken to its core, and I would soon face a decision that would change everything. The call came at 3 a.m., jolting me from a fitful sleep. Mom's neighbor, Mrs. Caldwell, her voice trembling, told me Mom had collapsed. By the time Brad and I reached the hospital, Mom was already in the ICU. "Stroke," the doctor said, his face grim. "The next 24 hours are critical." I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. Brad's arm around my waist was the only thing keeping me upright. "She'll pull through," he whispered. "Your mom's a fighter." But as the hours ticked by, hope dwindled. Mom's condition deteriorated rapidly. By nightfall, the doctor's expression had changed from grim to defeated. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "There's nothing more we can do." The words hit me like a physical blow. I crumpled into Brad's arms, my body racked with sobs. This couldn't be happening. Not Mom. Not now. As we entered Mom's room, the steady beep of machines filled the air. She looked so small, so fragile in that hospital bed. I took her hand, cold and limp, in mine. "Mom," I choked out, "please don't leave me." Her eyes fluttered open, focusing on me with effort. "Jordan," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "My sweet girl." I leaned in close, drinking in every word. "I'm here, Mom. I'm right here." She squeezed my hand weakly. "Be happy, sweetheart. That's all I ever wanted for you." Her eyes drifted to Brad, standing silently behind me. "Take care of her," she murmured. Brad nodded solemnly. "I promise, Mom, with everything I have." Mom's lips curved into a faint smile. Then with a soft sigh, she closed her eyes. The machines wailed as her heart stopped beating. The next few days passed in a blur of grief and exhaustion. Brad took charge of the funeral arrangements, handling everything with quiet efficiency. I moved through the motions like a ghost, barely able to function. The day of the funeral dawned bright and clear, a cruel contrast to the darkness in my heart. As I stood before the mirror, struggling to fasten the clasp of Mom's locket. Brad appeared behind me. "Let me," he said gently, his fingers deftly securing the necklace. I met his eyes in the reflection. "I don't know how to do this," I whispered. "How to live without her." Brad turned me to face him, his hands on my shoulders. "You're not alone, Jordan. I'm here. We'll get through this together." At the cemetery, I clutched Brad's hand like a lifeline as they lowered Mom's casket into the ground. Nicole stood on my other side, her daughter Maya pressed close to her leg. As people began to disperse, Brad squeezed my hand. "I'll give you a moment alone," he said, moving away. I knelt by the fresh mound of earth, tears streaming down my face. "I'm sorry, Mom," I whispered. "I'm sorry I didn't spend more time with you. I'm sorry for all the things I never said." A hand on my shoulder startled me. I looked up to see Nicole, her eyes red-rimmed but determined. "She knew, Jor," she said softly. "Mom knew how much you loved her." As we walked back to the car, I noticed Brad deep in conversation with the funeral director. Their hushed tones and serious expressions sent a chill down my spine. "Everything okay?" I asked as Brad rejoined us. He nodded, a bit too quickly, just finalizing some details. That night, as I lay sleepless in bed, I heard Brad's voice from downstairs. He was on the phone, speaking in low, urgent tones. "Need to move quickly." I caught snippets of his conversation. "Before she suspects anything." My heart began to race. What was Brad up to? And why did I have the sinking feeling it had something to do with Mom's death? As I lay there, my mind spinning with questions and suspicions, I realized that my grief was slowly giving way to something else. A determination to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Little did I know, the path I was about to embark on would shatter everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, and the man I had chosen to spend my life with. The weeks following Mom's funeral were a blur of grief and paperwork. Brad had been my rock, handling everything from the estate lawyers to the endless stream of well-wishers. But as the fog of sorrow began to lift, I noticed something off about his behavior. It started with little things. Hushed phone calls that abruptly ended when I entered the room, furtive glances at his phone during dinner. But it was the day I caught him rifling through Mom's old files that my suspicions crystallized into something more sinister. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Brad jumped, guilt flashing across his face before he smoothed it into a sympathetic smile. "Just organizing some papers for the lawyer, honey. Don't worry about it." But I did worry. That night, I lay awake, my mind racing. When Brad's phone buzzed with a late-night text, I made a decision that would change everything. The next morning, I waited until Brad left for work before sneaking into his home office. My hands shook as I booted up his computer, feeling like a thief in my own home. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. A series of emails with a local real estate appraiser. My blood ran cold as I read the messages. Brad had been secretly getting Mom's house appraised. But why? We had agreed to keep it in the family, a place for Nicole and her daughter to live. Suddenly, a noise from downstairs made me jump. Brad's voice called out, "Jordan, you home?" Panic surged through me. I quickly closed the emails and shut down the computer, my heart pounding so loud I was sure Brad would hear it. "Up here!" I called back, trying to keep my voice steady. Just tidying up a bit. That evening, over a dinner I could barely stomach, I decided to confront him. "Brad," I began, setting down my fork. "I need to ask you something." He looked up, his expression guarded. "What is it, honey?" "Why did you have Mom's house appraised?" The color drained from his face. For a moment, he looked like a deer caught in headlights. Then his features hardened. "How did you find out about that?" "It doesn't matter," I said, my voice trembling. "What matters is why you did it behind my back." Brad's jaw clenched. "I was trying to protect you, Jordan. We need to think about our future, about Lily's future. That house is worth a lot of money." "Protect me?" I echoed, disbelief coloring my tone. "By going behind my back? By betraying my trust?" "Don't be so dramatic," Brad snapped. "It's just business. Your mother would have wanted us to be financially secure." His words hit me like a physical blow. "My mother would have wanted us to honor her wishes," I shot back. "She wanted that house to stay in the family, for Nicole and Maya." Brad's eyes flashed with anger. "And what about our family? What about Lily? Don't we deserve a better life?" Not at the expense of my sister and niece, I shouted, rising from my chair. God, Brad, I don't even recognize you anymore. What happened to the man I married? He grew up, Brad snarled. He realized that in this world you have to look out for yourself. As we glared at each other across the dinner table, I felt something inside me break. This wasn't the man I had fallen in love with. This wasn't the life I had envisioned for us. I want you out, I said, my voice low and dangerous. Pack your things and leave now. Brad's face contorted with rage. You can't do this. You have no idea what you're getting into. As he stormed out of the room, his last words sent a chill down my spine. What did he mean? What else was he hiding? That night, as I lay alone in our bed, I made a vow. I would uncover the truth, no matter how ugly it might be. For Mom's memory, for Nicole and Maya, and for my own peace of mind, I would get to the bottom of Brad's deception. Little did I know, the truth would be far more devastating than I could have ever imagined. The truth hit me like a freight train. As I sat in the lawyer's office, staring at the documents spread before me, I felt my world crumbling around me. Brad, the man I had loved and trusted, had been living a lie. I'm sorry, Mrs. Bradford, the lawyer said gently, but it appears your husband has accrued a significant gambling debt over the past few years. He's been using your mother's house as collateral. My hands shook as I leafed through the papers. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, borrowed against Mom's home. Our home. The home that was supposed to be a safe haven for Nicole and Maya. How? I choked out. How could he do this? The lawyer's sympathetic gaze did nothing to ease the pain. I'm afraid it gets worse. There's evidence that Mr. Bradford may have, hastened your mother's passing to gain access to the property sooner. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the desk, fighting the urge to be sick. Brad hadn't just betrayed me. He'd betrayed Mom's memory, her trust in him. And for what? For money to fuel his addiction? I left the office in a daze, my mind reeling. As I drove home, a cold determination settled over me. This ends now, I thought. Brad was waiting when I got home, his face a mask of false concern. Where have you been? Honey, I've been worried sick. I looked at him, really looked at him, and wondered how I had ever been so blind. It's over, Brad, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. I know everything. His facade crumbled instantly. Jordan, I can explain. Explain what? I cut him off. How you gambled away our future. How you used my mother's house as your personal piggy bank. Or maybe you'd like to explain how you hastened her death. Brad's face went pale. That's not true. I loved your mother. I would never... Save it, I spat. I want you out of this house and out of my life. Now. As Brad packed his things, casting desperate glances my way, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. This wasn't the end I had envisioned for us, but it was the end we deserved. Once he was gone, I called Nicole. Can you come over? I asked, my voice breaking. And bring Maya. I need you both. An hour later, we sat around Mom's old kitchen table, the same one where we'd shared so many family dinners. I told them everything. Brad's betrayal, the gambling, the threats to our home. Nicole reached across the table, squeezing my hand. Oh, Jor, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Maya, wise beyond her years, looked up at me with determination in her eyes. We'll fix this, Aunt Jordan, together. Looking at their faces, my sister, my niece, my family, I felt a surge of strength. You're right, I said. We will fix this. This is our home, and no one is going to take it from us. Over the next few weeks, we formulated a plan. I threw myself into work, taking on extra projects to boost our income. Nicole started a small business from home, selling her handmade crafts online. Even Maya pitched in, offering to tutor younger kids in the neighborhood. It wasn't easy. There were nights when the weight of it all felt crushing. But every morning, I'd wake up to the sound of Nicole humming in the kitchen or Maya's laughter echoing through the halls, and I knew we were going to make it. 6 months later, we gathered around that same kitchen table. But this time, instead of bad news, we were celebrating. We had done it. We had paid off Brad's debts and saved our home. As I looked around at the faces of my true family, I felt Mom's presence stronger than ever. I fingered the locket around my neck, the one she had given me on my wedding day. We did it, Mom, I whispered. We kept your home. We kept our family together. Nicole raised her glass. To Mom, she said, her eyes glistening. And to us. To us, Maya and I echoed. In that moment, I realized that sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into. Brad had betrayed us, but he had also unwittingly given us a gift, the chance to discover our own strength, our resilience, our love for each other. As we laughed and talked late into the night, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. This was home. This was family. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, I knew we would face them together. The sound of shattering glass jolted me from my sleep. My heart raced as I sat up, disoriented in the darkness. Ethan's side of the bed was empty, the sheets cold. Where was he? I fumbled for my phone, squinting at the bright screen. 3:17 a.m. This wasn't like him at all. Ethan? I called out, my voice echoing through our silent house. No response. Slipping on my robe, I crept downstairs, following the faint glow from the kitchen. As I approached, I heard hushed voices. Ethan's and a woman's? I peered around the corner, my breath catching in my throat. There was Ethan, hunched over the kitchen island, head in his hands. Across from him stood a woman I hadn't seen in years but would recognize anywhere. Jennifer, his estranged sister. "You can't keep doing this, Jen," Ethan was saying, his voice strained. Charlotte and I agreed. "Oh, spare me the lecture, big brother," Jennifer snapped. "You know I wouldn't be here if I had any other choice." I stepped into the kitchen, unable to contain myself any longer. "What's going on here?" They both whirled to face me, guilt written all over Ethan's face. Jennifer, on the other hand, looked triumphant. Well, she drawled. "If it isn't the lovely Charlotte, did we wake you?" "Cut the crap, Jennifer," I snapped. "What are you doing in my house at 3 a.m? Ethan stepped between us, hands raised placatingly. "Char, I can explain." "You'd better," I said, crossing my arms. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been lying to me." Jennifer let out a harsh laugh. "Oh, he's been lying all right. For months now, sending me money, helping me out, all behind your back." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "Is that true?" I asked Ethan, willing him to deny it. He couldn't meet my eyes. I didn't know how to tell you. After everything that happened last time... "Last time?" I exploded. "Last time she nearly ruined us, Ethan. We agreed to cut her off. You promised me." I know, he said, reaching for me. I jerked away. "But she needed help, Char. She's my sister." "And I'm your wife," I shouted, tears pricking at my eyes. "How could you do this to me? To us?" Jennifer smirked, clearly enjoying the drama. "Face it, Charlotte. Blood is thicker than water. Ethan will always choose me over you." "That's enough," Ethan roared, rounding on his sister. "You need to leave now." "Fine," Jennifer shrugged, sauntering towards the door. "But this isn't over, big brother. You owe me." The door slammed behind her, leaving Ethan and me in a deafening silence. "Charlotte," he began, his voice pleading. "I'm so sorry. I should have told you." "How long?" I interrupted, my voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated. 6 months. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. 6 months of lies, 6 months of sneaking around behind my back, 6 months of choosing her over me. "I trusted you," I said, my voice breaking. "After everything we've been through, I thought we were past this." "We are," Ethan insisted, reaching for me again. This time, I let him take my hands. "Charlotte, I love you. You're my wife, my partner. Jennifer, she's just my sister. She needed help, and I couldn't turn my back on her. But you're the one I choose. Always." I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of our troubles. "I need some time," I said, pulling away from him. I can't process this right now." As I turned to leave the kitchen, Ethan called out, "Where are you going?" I paused in the doorway, not looking back. "To pack a bag. I'm staying at Olivia's tonight. Don't try to stop me." With that, I climbed the stairs, my mind reeling. How had my life turned upside down so quickly? And more importantly, how was I going to fix it? I stared at my phone, thumb hovering over Ethan's name. 3 days of silence stretched between us like an abyss. Part of me wanted to hurl the device across Olivia's guest room, but I forced myself to hit call instead. He answered on the first ring. "Charlotte? Are you okay?" "We need to talk," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Meet me at Rosie's Diner in an hour." The bell above the door chimed as Ethan walked in, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Good. At least I wasn't the only one suffering. "Thanks for coming," I said as he slid into the booth across from me. "Of course," he replied, fidgeting with a napkin. Char, I'm so sorry. I held up a hand. I didn't ask you here for apologies. I want answers. Why, Ethan? After everything Jennifer's put us through, why would you risk our marriage for her? He sighed, shoulders slumping. She's changed, Charlotte. She's been through some rough times, and she's really trying to turn her life around, I scoffed. And you believe her? After all the lies? I do, he said, meeting my eyes. She's been sober for 8 months. She's holding down a job. And she's been seeing a therapist. That caught me off guard. A therapist? Ethan nodded. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. It explains a lot of her past behavior. She's on medication now, and it's making a real difference. I felt my resolve wavering. If Jennifer was genuinely trying to get help, why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice softer now. I wanted to, Ethan said, reaching across the table. This time I let him take my hand. But I was afraid you wouldn't believe her, that you'd think it was just another manipulation. Can you blame me? I asked, pulling my hand away. After what happened last time? Ethan winced. I know, but she's my sister, Char. I couldn't turn my back on her when she was finally asking for help. And just then, the waitress appeared with our usual orders. As she set down my coffee, I caught a glimpse of her name tag, Jennifer. My stomach churned. You still should have told me, I said, pushing the mug away. We're supposed to be partners, Ethan. No secrets. You're right, he admitted. I screwed up, but I want to make it right. What can I do? I took a deep breath. I want to meet with Jennifer, see this change for myself. Ethan's eyes widened. Are you sure? I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable position. I'm sure, I said, even as doubt gnawed at me. It's the only way I'll know if I can trust either of you again. He nodded slowly. Okay, I'll set it up. As we left the diner, Ethan reached for my hand. I let him take it, but the gesture felt hollow. Trust, once broken, was not easily mended. The next evening, I found myself standing outside Jennifer's apartment, my heart pounding. Ethan squeezed my hand reassuringly as he knocked. The door swung open, revealing a woman I barely recognized. Gone was the wild-eyed, disheveled Jennifer of old. This woman looked put together. Calm. Charlotte, she said, her voice lacking its usual edge. I'm so glad you came. Please, come in. As we stepped inside, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into the lion's den. But I had to know the truth. Jennifer gestured to the couch. Can I get you anything? Water? Tea? No, thank you, I said stiffly. I think we should just talk. She nodded, settling into an armchair across from us. I owe you an apology, Charlotte. My behavior has been inexcusable, and I'm truly sorry for all the pain I've caused you and Ethan. I studied her face, searching for signs of deception. Ethan tells me you've been getting help. Yes, Jennifer said, her eyes dropping to her hands. I should have done it years ago, but I was too proud, too scared to admit I needed help. As she spoke about her diagnosis, her treatment, I felt my anger slowly giving way to something else. Understanding, pity, I wasn't sure. But just as I was starting to relax, Jennifer's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her face paling. Everything okay? Ethan asked, concern etching his features. Fine, Jennifer said quickly, too quickly. It's nothing. But I saw the panic in her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands as she set the phone down, and in that moment, I knew. She was lying. Again. The annual Thompson family barbecue was in full swing, but I couldn't shake the unease that had settled over me since our meeting with Jennifer. Ethan's hand on my lower back felt more like a restraint than comfort as we navigated through clusters of relatives. Charlotte, dear. Ethan's mother, Margaret, swooped in for a hug. We've missed you. How are you holding up? I forced a smile. I'm fine, Margaret. Just been busy with work. She patted my cheek. Well, we're all so glad you two worked things out. Family is everything, after all. As if summoned by those words, Jennifer appeared, all smiles and charm. Charlotte, I'm so happy you could make it. I tensed, remembering the panic in her eyes at her apartment. Jennifer, how nice to see you. Oh, come now, she laughed, linking her arm through mine. Be strangers. We're practically sisters. Before I could protest, she was steering me away from Ethan, towards a group of cousins I barely knew. As we walked, she leaned in close. I know you don't trust me, she whispered, her breath hot on my ear. But you should be careful. There are things about you Ethan doesn't know, things I could tell him. I jerked away, heart pounding. What are you talking about? Jennifer's smile was razor sharp. Oh, you know, your little indiscretion. Last year when you thought Ethan was cheating? The world tilted sideways. How could she possibly know about that? I don't know what you're talking about, I managed, but my voice shook. Don't you? Jennifer's eyes glittered. That handsome client of yours, Robert, was it? I'm sure Ethan would be fascinated to hear all about your late-night meetings. Nothing happened, I hissed, even as shame burned through me. It was true. Nothing had happened. But I'd been tempted. God help me, I'd been tempted. Maybe not, Jennifer shrugged. But how do you think it would look to Ethan, to everyone here? I glanced around wildly, suddenly aware of how many eyes were on us. Ethan was watching from across the yard, brow furrowed in concern. What do you want? I asked, defeat heavy in my chest. Jennifer's smile widened. Oh, nothing much, just your support. When I tell Ethan I need a place to stay for a while. Absolutely not, I snapped, finding my backbone. I won't let you manipulate us anymore. Then I guess I'll just have to share what I know, Jennifer said, raising her voice. Hey, everyone, I have an announcement to make. Panic clawed at my throat. Jennifer, don't, but it was too late. She was already clinking her glass, drawing everyone's attention. I just wanted to say how grateful I am to be here, Jennifer began, her voice syrupy sweet, and how thankful I am to Ethan and Charlotte for their support during my recovery. I held my breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. In fact, she continued, I have some exciting news. I'm pregnant. The crowd erupted in cheers and congratulations. I stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. Ethan pushed through the crowd, his face a mask of shock. Jen, what? How? Jennifer's eyes locked on mine, triumph blazing in them. Oh, it's such a blessing, and I'm so glad I'll have family to help me through it. You'll let me stay with you, won't you, big brother? The silence that fell was deafening. All eyes turned to Ethan, then to me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This couldn't be happening. Ethan reached for my hand. Char, I jerked away, bile rising in my throat. Don't touch me. And then I was running, pushing past concerned relatives, ignoring the calls of my name. I didn't stop until I reached my car, fumbling with the keys as tears blurred my vision. As I peeled out of the driveway, one thought pounded through my head. This was it. The final straw. My marriage was over. The cardboard box felt heavier than it should as I packed the last of my belongings. 2 weeks had passed since the disastrous family barbecue, and I still couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that clung to me like a second skin. Are you sure about this, Charlotte? Olivia asked, hovering in the doorway of what used to be my bedroom. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The truth was, I wasn't sure of anything anymore. But I knew I couldn't stay in this house, surrounded by memories of a life that now felt like a lie. As if on cue, Ethan's voice drifted up from downstairs. Char, can we talk? I closed my eyes, steeling myself. I'll be down in a minute, I called back, my voice steadier than I felt. Olivia squeezed my arm. I'll wait in the car. Take your time. I found Ethan in the kitchen, looking lost among the half-packed boxes. The sight of him still made my heart ache, despite everything. So, this is really happening, he said, gesturing to the chaos around us. It is, I replied, keeping my distance. I think we both know it's for the best. Ethan's shoulders slumped. I never wanted this, Charlotte. I love you. We can still fix this. I shook my head, feeling the familiar sting of tears. Can we? After everything that's happened, Jennifer's pregnant, Ethan. And you chose her. Again. I didn't choose her over you, he protested. I'm just trying to help my sister. At what cost? I asked, my voice rising. Our marriage? My trust? When does it end? Before he could answer, a sharp pain lanced through my abdomen. I gasped, doubling over. Charlotte! Ethan was at my side in an instant, his arm around my waist. What's wrong? I don't know, I managed through gritted teeth. It hurts. The world tilted, and suddenly I was on the floor, Ethan's panicked face swimming above me. I heard him calling for Olivia, felt hands lifting me, but it all seemed far away. The next thing I knew, I was in a hospital bed, the steady beep of monitors filling the air. Olivia sat beside me, her face drawn with worry. What happened? I croaked, my throat dry. Olivia's eyes filled with tears. Oh, honey, you collapsed. The doctors say it was a combination of stress and exhaustion. Your body just shut down. I closed my eyes, letting the information sink in. Where's Ethan? He's outside. He's been here the whole time, pacing like a caged animal. Do you want me to get him? Part of me wanted to say no, to shut him out completely. But a larger part, the part that still loved him despite everything, needed to see him. I nodded, and moments later, Ethan was by my side, his eyes red-rimmed and worried. "Char," he breathed, taking my hand. "I was so scared, I thought I might lose you." "You can't lose what you've already thrown away," I said, but there was no bite to my words, just exhaustion. Ethan's face crumpled. "I know I've messed up, but seeing you like this, it's made me realize what really matters. You're everything to me, Charlotte. Please, give me one more chance. I'll do whatever it takes." I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to. But the memory of Jennifer's smug face, of Ethan's repeated betrayals, held me back. "I can't do this anymore, Ethan," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "The stress, the lies, it's killing me. Literally." He nodded, tears spilling down his cheeks. "I understand, but I'm not giving up on us, Charlotte. I'll prove to you that you can trust me again, whatever it takes." As he spoke, a nurse entered, clipboard in hand. "Mrs. Thompson? We have your test results." I braced myself, expecting the worst, but nothing could have prepared me for her next words. "Congratulations," she said with a smile. "You're pregnant." The world stopped. I looked at Ethan, saw my own shock mirrored in his eyes. In that moment, I knew everything was about to change, again. I stared at the pregnancy test in my hands, the 2 pink lines mocking me. It had been a week since the hospital, and I still couldn't wrap my head around it. Pregnant, with everything going on, how could this be happening? A knock on the bathroom door startled me. "Charlotte?" Olivia's voice called. "You okay in there?" I opened the door, wordlessly holding out the test. Olivia's eyes widened. "Oh, honey," she breathed, pulling me into a hug. "What are you going to do?" That was the million-dollar question, wasn't it? I pulled away, sinking onto the edge of the bathtub. "I don't know," I admitted. "I mean, Ethan and I were barely speaking, and with Jennifer's pregnancy." Olivia sat beside me, her face serious. "Charlotte, I know things are complicated, but maybe this is a sign, a chance to start fresh," I scoffed. "A fresh start? With all this baggage?" "Listen to me," Olivia said, grabbing my hands. "You love Ethan. Despite everything, I know you do. And he loves you. Maybe it's time to lay all the cards on the table. Really talk things through." I wanted to argue, to list all the reasons why that was a terrible idea. But a small part of me, the part that still clung to hope, whispered that maybe she was right. "Okay," I said finally. "I'll talk to him, but I'm not promising anything." An hour later, I found myself sitting across from Ethan at our favorite coffee shop. The familiar setting felt strange now, like a relic from another life. "Thanks for meeting me," I said, fidgeting with my cup. Ethan nodded, his eyes searching my face. "Of course. Charlotte, I'm pregnant," I blurted out, unable to hold it in any longer. Ethan's jaw dropped. For a moment he just stared at me, shock written all over his face. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his features. "We're having a baby?" he whispered, reaching for my hand. I pulled back, shaking my head. "Ethan, this doesn't change anything. We still have a lot to work through." His smile faltered. "I know. But Charlotte, this is incredible news. We're going to be parents." "So is Jennifer," I reminded him, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. Ethan's face fell. "About that, there's something you should know." My heart clenched. "What now?" He took a deep breath. "Jennifer, she's not really pregnant. It was all a lie, to manipulate us. I found out yesterday." The world tilted on its axis. "What?" I gasped. Why would she do that?" "She's sick, Charlotte," Ethan said, his voice heavy with regret. "She's off her meds, has been for months. I've arranged for her to get help, real help this time, in a facility where she can't hurt anyone else." I sat back, stunned. All this time, all the pain and betrayal, for a lie? "I'm so sorry," Ethan continued, his eyes pleading. "I should have seen through her act. I should have trusted you. Can you ever forgive me?" I looked at him, really looked at him. The man I'd fallen in love with, the man I'd built a life with. He'd made mistakes, huge ones. But hadn't I too? "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I think I want to try." Relief washed over Ethan's face. He reached for my hand again, and this time I let him take it. "We have a lot to work on," I warned. "Trust to rebuild. It won't be easy." "I know," he nodded. "But you and our baby, you're worth fighting for. I'll do whatever it takes, Charlotte, I promise." As I sat there, Ethan's hand warm in mine, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other, for ourselves and for the little life growing inside me. "Okay," I said softly. Let's go home. And with that decision, I took the first step on a new, uncertain path, one that I hoped would lead us back to the love we once shared, stronger and wiser than before. The soft glow of candlelight flickered across Ethan's face as we finished our dinner. 3 months had passed since our reconciliation, and tonight marked a milestone, our first home-cooked meal together since I'd moved back in. "This is nice," I said, reaching for his hand across the table. Ethan smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "It is. How are you feeling? Any morning sickness today?" I shook my head, unconsciously resting a hand on my slightly swollen belly. "Not today, but Ethan, is everything okay? You seem distracted." He hesitated, then sighed. "I'm sorry, Char. Work's been crazy lately. There's this big project, and The shrill ring of his phone cut him off. Ethan glanced at the screen, his face tightening. "I have to take this," he said, standing abruptly. "I'll be right back." As he hurried from the room, a familiar unease settled in my stomach. I'd seen this behavior before, when he was hiding Jennifer's involvement in our lives. Against my better judgment, I followed him, pausing outside his study door. "I told you not to call me at home," Ethan was saying, his voice low and urgent. "No, I can't meet you tonight. Charlotte's suspicious enough as it is." My heart pounded. Who was he talking to? What was he hiding now? "Look, I'll figure something out," Ethan continued. Just give me a few more days. I promise I'll make it right." I stumbled back, my mind reeling. After everything we'd been through, after all his promises, was he lying to me again? When Ethan returned to the dining room, I was waiting, arms crossed. "Who was that?" I asked, fighting to keep my voice steady. He blinked, caught off guard. "Oh, just work stuff. Nothing important." "Don't lie to me, Ethan," I snapped, my composure cracking. "I heard you. Who can't you meet tonight? What are you trying to make right?" Ethan's face paled. "Charlotte, I can explain." "Then explain," I shouted, tears burning my eyes, "because from where I'm standing it looks like you're betraying me all over again." He reached for me, but I jerked away. "It's not what you think," he pleaded. "I swear I'm not cheating on you." "Then what is it?" I demanded. "Because I can't do this again, Ethan. I won't." He ran a hand through his hair, visibly struggling. It's Jennifer." The world tilted sideways. "Jennifer? I thought she was in a facility. Getting help." "She was," Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But she checked herself out last week. She's been calling me, begging for money. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. And you've been giving it to her? After everything?" "I didn't want to stress you out," he said, about reaching for me again. "With the baby and us trying to rebuild, I thought I could handle it on my own." I stepped back, shaking my head. "You promised me, Ethan. No more secrets, no more lies." "I know," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry, Charlotte. I was trying to protect you." "By lying to me?" I laughed bitterly. "How's that working out?" Before he could respond, a sharp pain lanced through my abdomen. I gasped, doubling over. "Charlotte!" Ethan cried, rushing to my side. "What's wrong?" "I don't know," I panted, fear clawing at my throat. "Something's not right." As Ethan helped me to the couch, another wave of pain hit. I looked down in horror to see a small spot of blood on my pants. "Oh, God," I whispered, meeting Ethan's panicked gaze, "the baby." In that moment, everything else fell away. The lies, the betrayal, even Jennifer. None of it mattered. All I could think about was the precious life inside me and the terrifying possibility that I might lose it. As Ethan called for an ambulance, I closed my eyes, silently praying. "Please, let our baby be okay. Please don't let this be the price of our mistakes." But as another cramp seized me, I couldn't shake the feeling that our fragile attempt at reconciliation was crumbling around us, taking our dreams of a family with it. The sterile hospital walls seemed to close in on me as I waited for news about my baby. The last few hours had been a blur of pain, fear, and frantic medical activity. Now, in the eerie quiet of the recovery room, I was left alone with my thoughts and the steady beep of monitors. Ethan burst through the door, his face etched with worry. "Charlotte, I'm so sorry. I got here as fast as I could. How are you?" "The baby?" I turned away, unable to look at him. "The baby's fine," I said, my voice hollow. "Just a scare. The doctor says I need to rest and avoid stress." Ethan's relief was palpable. "Thank God," he breathed, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. "Don't," I said, finally meeting his eyes. "I can't do this anymore, Ethan. The lies, the secrets, it's killing me. And now it almost cost us our child." His face crumpled. Charlotte, please, I know I messed up, but I swear I'll make it right. No more secrets. I laughed bitterly. You said that before. How can I ever trust you again? Before he could respond, a commotion in the hallway caught our attention. A familiar voice, shrill and angry, echoed through the corridor. I need to see my brother. You can't keep me out. My blood ran cold. Jennifer, Ethan paled. I'll handle this, he said, moving towards the door. No, I said, struggling to sit up. I want to hear what she has to say. Jennifer burst into the room, her eyes wild. When she saw me, she sneered. Well, if it isn't the happy couple. Jennifer, you need to leave, Ethan said, stepping between us. She ignored him, focusing on me. Did he tell you about the baby? My heart stopped. What are you talking about? Jennifer's laugh was cruel. Oh, this is Rich. He didn't tell you, did he? I'm pregnant, Charlotte. And guess who the father is? The world tilted sideways. I looked at Ethan, silently begging him to deny it, but the guilt in his eyes said everything. No, I whispered, feeling like I might be sick. Tell me it's not true. Ethan reached for me, his voice breaking. Charlotte, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. I was drunk, and Jennifer, she took advantage. Took advantage? Jennifer screeched. You came to me, Ethan. You were the one who said you were unhappy, that Charlotte didn't understand you. I closed my eyes, willing this nightmare to end. But when I opened them, nothing had changed. My husband, the father of my child, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Get out, I said, my voice deadly calm. Both of you, get out of my sight. Charlotte, please, Ethan begged. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain, I shouted, tears streaming down my face. You slept with your sister. You got her pregnant. While I was at home, carrying your child, trying to rebuild our marriage. Jennifer smirked, one hand resting on her belly. Face it, Charlotte. You've lost. Ethan will always choose family over you. Something inside me snapped. With strength I didn't know I possessed, I lunged out of the bed, grabbing Jennifer by the collar. You are not his family, I hissed. You're a cancer, destroying everything you touch. Ethan pulled me back, his face a mask of shock. Charlotte, stop! Think of the baby. His words were like a bucket of ice water. I stumbled back, suddenly aware of the monitors beeping frantically around me. As nurses rushed in, alerted by the commotion, I locked eyes with Ethan one last time. We're done, I said, my voice breaking. I want a divorce. The last thing I saw before the sedative took hold was Ethan's devastated face and Jennifer's triumphant smirk. As darkness claimed me, one thought echoed through my mind. How had my life come to this? And more importantly, how was I going to pick up the pieces? 6 months after leaving Ethan, I stood in front of the mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back at me. My hand rested on my now prominent baby bump, a bittersweet reminder of the life I was building. Alone, but stronger than ever. The doorbell rang, jolting me from my reverie. Olivia's voice called out, Charlotte, you ready? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. Today was the day I'd face Ethan for the first time since the hospital, the final divorce hearing. As we drove to the courthouse, Olivia squeezed my hand. You've got this, Char. Remember how far you've come. She was right. In the past months, I'd thrown myself into creating a new life. Our online business was thriving, giving me a sense of purpose and financial independence I'd never known. But more importantly, I'd rediscovered myself, the strong, resilient woman I'd lost somewhere along the way. The courthouse loomed before us, a monument to endings and beginnings. As we climbed the steps, I spotted Ethan waiting by the entrance. My heart clenched, but not with longing, with pity. He looked terrible, his once crisp suit hanging loosely on his frame, dark circles under his eyes. When he saw me, his face crumpled. Charlotte, he breathed, reaching for me. I stepped back. Don't, I said, my voice steady. Let's just get this over with. Inside, as our lawyers finalized the paperwork, Ethan leaned towards me. I lost my job, he whispered. The stress. I made some mistakes at work, big ones. I nodded, unsurprised. And Jennifer? His face darkened. Gone. If she lost the baby. If there ever was one. Turns out it was all a lie to manipulate me. A part of me wanted to feel vindicated, but mostly, I just felt sad. I'm sorry, Ethan, for all of it. He looked at me, eyes brimming with regret. I ruined everything, didn't I? Us, the life we built. I threw it all away. We both made mistakes, I said softly. But yes, you did, and now we both have to live with the consequences. As I signed the final document, a weight lifted from my shoulders. It was done. I was free. Outside the courthouse, Ethan caught my arm. Charlotte, wait, I know I have no right to ask, but... The baby. Will I ever... I met his gaze, seeing the broken man before me. In that moment, I made a decision that surprised even me. You're still this child's father, Ethan, I said. If you can prove to me that you've changed, really changed, then yes, you can be part of their life. But it has to be on my terms. Relief washed over his face. Thank you, he whispered. I promise I'll do whatever it takes. As Ethan walked away, Olivia appeared at my side. You okay? I nodded, a small smile tugging at my lips. Yeah, I think I am. That night, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, I felt a flutter in my belly. My hand flew to the spot, tears springing to my eyes as I felt my baby kick for the first time. In that moment, everything crystallized. The pain, the betrayal, the heartache, it had all led me here, to this moment of pure, unadulterated joy. I thought about the journey ahead, single motherhood, building my business, maybe even finding love again someday. It wouldn't be easy, but I was ready. Ready to face whatever life threw at me, on my own terms. As the last rays of sunlight painted the sky, I made a promise to myself and to my unborn child. We would build a life filled with love, honesty, and strength. A life where we never compromised our happiness for anyone else's mistakes. The future stretched out before me, uncertain but full of possibility, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly, completely free. I placed both hands on my belly, smiling through my tears. It's just you and me, little one, I whispered, and we're going to be just fine. As night fell, I stepped back inside, closing the door on my old life and embracing the new one waiting to begin. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew one thing for certain. I was ready to face them, stronger and more resilient than ever before.